Mute the mic and put the mic
Okay.
should be as close as possible to speaker, then the voice is the best.
We need to move this around.
Yeah, and then the laptop should be like comfortable.
What's that doing? Some of these cords here. Is that going to hold there for you? Is that okay?
Will it hold there?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it's balanced. It feels okay.
Is it balanced? Yeah.
It could be a little bit closer.
I'll put the Dharma stuff on the Dharma. Is that ready?
Yes.
I've got voice. Good morning. Good morning, Tim. We thought you were going to join us here.
Yes, I was sort of about to come up and I thought, oh, no, I won't make it today, but I'll try again next week. The meditation.
Okay.
Cool.
Good. Well, there's 5 of us here in the room, and welcome to everybody else online. So for our second installment on transforming problems. So you must be all courageous bodhisattvas who come back for a second day. So I thought we could start in terms of setting our motivation for today with this practice method to transform a suffering life into happiness, including enlightenment, which if you have the retreat book is on page 11. Oh, one more joining. Wonderful. Okay, so on page 11. So as it says, you know, setting our motivation to engage in the bodhisattva path at the beginning of each day after you open your eyes until enlightenment is achieved and until death, and especially today, so that all activities of your body, speech and mind so we're setting our motivation. Maybe you can do that later. Sorry, getting a bit distracted. So that all activities of the body, speech and mind, hearing, thinking and meditating, as well as walking, sitting, sleeping. This is great. You can just do what you do, you know, doing your job and so on. Do not become the cause of suffering, and instead become the cause of happiness, and especially that become the cause to achieve Buddhahood. You transform them into a method for accomplishing benefit and happiness for all sentient beings. So this is whatever we're doing anyway. So those of you who are here for when we engage the previous module, how to develop bodhicitta, we went extensively into how we can change our thinking for everything that we're doing in the day anyway, and getting very practical and just thinking, you know, I'm going up the hill for the benefit of all beings, bringing them up to enlightenment, in the shower, purifying inside and out to attain the realizations of the path, to guide others to enlightenment, so forth, everything we ordinarily do. So here is a method for transforming the mind into holy Dharma, and especially into bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, the awakening mind of a Buddha. Okay. Essence encompassing all the Buddhas. I think we can do together. Good morning. What's your name? Hannah. Hi. Welcome. Essence encompassing all the Buddhas, originator of all the holy Dharma, of scripture and realizations, principle of all the Aryas intending virtue to the glorious holy Gurus, I take refuge. Please, Gurus, bless my mind to become Dharma, Dharma to become the path, and to the path to be without obstacles. Until I achieve Buddhahood, please bless me to be like the youthful Nosang and the Bodhisattva, always crying, incorrectly following the virtuous friend with pure thought and action, seeing whatever is done as pure and accomplishing whatever is said and advised. So thinking this is how to correctly follow the virtuous friend, in other words, the Buddha's teachings and any teachers that we have, spiritual teachers. Please bless me to see this gratefully meaningful body with freedoms and richnesses is difficult to find and easily perishes, that action and results are so profound, and that the sufferings of the evil gone transmigratory beings are so difficult to bear. Therefore, please bless me to take refuge from the depths of my heart in the three rare sublime ones, to abandon negative karma and to accomplish virtue according to the Dharma. So this graduated path of the lower capable being, or we say small scope, lower scope. It's actually for all of us as practitioners on the path to enlightenment. These are all the practices. In dependence upon that, even if I achieve the mere higher rebirth of a deva or human, I will still have to experience suffering endlessly and samsara because of not having abandoned and being under the control of the disturbing thought obscurations. Therefore, please bless me to reflect well upon the way of circling in samsara and to continuously follow day and night the path of the three types of precious trainings, the principal method becoming free from samsara. So this is the graduated part of the middle capable being, not just wishing to get a precious human rebirth next time, or God realm body, but wanting to be free from this cycle of existence altogether. In dependence upon that, even if I achieve mere liberation, which means for myself alone, individual liberation, since there is no sentient being of the six types who has not been my father and mother, please bless me to think I must fulfill their purpose and turn away from the lower happiness of nirvana. Then please bless me to generate precious bodhicitta by equalizing and exchanging myself with others, and to follow the conduct of the conqueror sons, the six parameters, and so forth. This is the common graduated path of the great capable being. And that's what we covered in the previous module. Having trained my mind in the common path in that way, I will not be upset, even if I have to experience the sufferings of samsara for a long time. However, please bless me to look at sentient beings with extraordinary, unbearable compassion and to enter the quick path of the Vajrayana teachings. Then, please bless me to protect my vows and samayas more than my life and to quickly accomplish the unified Vajrayana state in one brief lifetime of this degenerate time. So that's the graduated path of the secret mantra Vajra vehicle, of the greatest capable being, of the Mahayana great vehicle practitioner practicing Tantra. That's in a future module. That's at the end of the year. We'll graduate then. Not really. There's a bit more you've got to do to graduate. Okay, so as we were looking at yesterday, just thinking, it's very beneficial to think about the benefits of our problems. Sounds weird to say, doesn't it? Let alone contemplate it. As it's the main method for us generating increasing greater strength and determination and the thought, habituating our mind to liking that which we normally want to repel, we normally want to push away, whether it's people, whether it's events, difficulties, illness, whatever. So recognizing these undesirable situations as desirable is one of the most powerful thought training practices you can do. So I don't know if you've seen are familiar with the image of Milarepa. So Milarepa was a great Tibetan yogi, practitioner. Actually, before that, he was a very naughty boy. It's always good to read the bios of these great holy beings because we hear the holy side and we think, oh, they're a bit holy. Oh, well, maybe you don't think that, but it sort of feels too far away, right? But anyway, so story goes that his family had been, robbed of their land or whatever the whole story was. Anyway, land taken away. So his mother sent him to black magic school. Like, apparently you could sign up for black magic school. I mean, it's just like, excuse me, directory, where's black magic school? Anyway, so he learned black magic, which was being able to use the elements in a destructive way. So we can see things like that happening in the world today, that it's being used for destruction. I think I was looking at one of the headlines about, I don't want to get into politics, but that's why I'm not in politics, but China, they're saying about artificial intelligence, and just the comment was, these sorts of things can be used for good or bad. I mean, any of these things. It's not, you know, we say social media is bad, and it's not social media is bad. It's what people's minds do with it, right? It's very good, you know. Social media is a way of connection, isn't it? Anyway, without that, where would we be without our internet here? So Milarepa, he came back and used the elements to create a huge storm that wiped out the village, basically. In other words, he became a mass murderer just like that. Later, strong regret arose in his mind, and this is where we can transform anything, the Buddha said. So perhaps all of us here and listening are not mass murderers, so we think, well, I haven't been as bad as that, right? In this life, anyway. So anyway, so he saw the error of his ways, and then Mapa was his teacher. He got Mapa as a teacher, which was checking out the qualities of the teacher and actually getting an authentic, correct teacher, because now he wanted the correct teachings. Now he wanted the Dharma, because where he was going only got him more and more suffering. And so Mapa was quite a wrathful teacher. And they say that when our minds can't be subdued by peaceful means, you need more wrathful measures. And so he had done some pretty heavy duty stuff. So he needed some pretty heavy duty discipline. So the story goes, to bed, whenever that was. And so he'd come to the teaching, he'd walk in the door. Imagine this, you walk in the door. Get out. I mean, you'd go and sue us, wouldn't you? Or you go down to the office and say, do you know what she said to me? She said, get out. Blah, 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 blah. I'd be chucked out. No. I'm not going to say that, right? I'm not Mapa. I have no realizations. Anyway, it was specific to, I mean, everybody else saw it who was in the teaching. They got to stay, but he had to go and build a tower. So he'd go and build this tower, following the Guru's instruction. It says to follow the advice. You got it wrong. It's in the wrong place. Put it down and start again. And actually he was building them out of stone that he was lugging from the river himself, you know, and then he had to put every stone back. And then he had to build it somewhere else, etc. This all went on 9 times. You know, sometimes that story is sort of like interpreted as, you know, sort of needing to destroy your own worldviews and your paradigms and, you know, so forth. That makes it easier for our minds. Anyway, following the Guru's advice like that, he then got the teachings, and then he went into long retreat, and he was in a cave and meditating on death until he overcame fear of death. And, you know, had great realizations, became a Buddha in that very lifetime. Well, you know, working with people in prison through the Liberation Prison Project, they love the story of Milarepa. They go, oh, he's a pretty cool dude. I get where he's coming from. Yeah, you want to go where he went, right? So your prison cell room is your meditation cave, right? That's what Lama Zopa says. Your hermitage, your cave, go for it, do retreat. Some of them do, it's amazing. Anyway, so Milarepa is pictured, he's got a green body because he ate nettles a lot. He lived off essence. He didn't need to eat a lot, right? Anyway, this is an advanced technique. We need food to keep us going. So he's pictured like this with his ear out, and he's wanting to hear all these problems. He's whelping them joyously. You know, the problems of the world, the suffering of the world. Oh, do. Oh, there's someone I can help. Like the tears of Chenrezig, you know. So he had the listening out like that. I mean, we go, oh, don't tell me. So this is the mind we're trying to cultivate. But as I say, you know, Milarepa did that after some pretty heavy duty hard yards, a lot to purify, a lot of intense practice. Okay. So here we are looking at how we can transform problems into happiness. And yesterday we were looking a bit, and previously, those who've been in the previous module, looking at the shortcomings of cherishing ourselves and the benefits of cherishing others. So, page 69. So as I mentioned yesterday, those who weren't here, this book, Transforming Problems, Lama Zopa Rinpoche is a go-to for this. Okay. So the benefits to use suffering and happiness in the Mahayana path, you cherish others and completely sacrifice yourself. Good morning, Graham. You can sign in. And Graham's joining us, as you know. This is when real happiness starts, when you live your life opposed to the self-cherishing thought. You are happy all the time. In other words, we know that when we do something and make others happy or do something nice for others and, well, I was going to say, and they appreciate it. Sometimes there's strings attached, isn't there? They have to appreciate it before I'm going to feel happy. But no, no matter what happens, you change. Your life changes. You're happy. So this is what we have to hold on to. I'm happy. And as Lama Zopa says, by training our mind in the way, the mind becomes very light. It becomes very soft. I'm always, when I read that, and I think of, His Eminence Chodron Rinpoche, who was a very tall, I don't know if anybody met Chodron Rinpoche, the previous, his reincarnations were now about 3 years old or 4 years old. He's so cute. He's wearing the little yellow hat of, well, the picture I saw a couple of years ago, his little ears sticking out. And I was like, oh yeah, that's Chodron Rinpoche. He had big ears, big feet. Yes, something wrong.
I think you need to be a little bit closer to you because it could become too hot when like this. Because otherwise there is no space between this desk and this, and it could become too hot.
Okay.
So now it's good.
I'm having some technical adjustments here. Thank you, Margot. See, Margot transformed her difficulties of being stuck here at Chenrezig as an overseas, come and say hello. Hello. As an overseas, some of you know Margot. So as an overseas,
Overseas
something person that
happy.
has no rights to any benefits to support her life, right? In Australia. Wow. But she's been a great asset to this place. So thank you for staying.
Yeah, I think it's the best place to be stuck.
Thank you.
Very happy of this.
Very best place to be stuck. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll use that as our advertisement. Come and be stuck with us here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Margot.
Okay, see you.
See you. So she's looking after all our technology and she's a filmmaker. She made that film about women, Bhikshuni, in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, Bhikkhuni.
Full ordination.
Buddhist Sri Lanka Revolution. And I'm also doing documentary film about Chenrezig, about this place.
Yeah.
You could follow on Facebook.
Follow on Facebook.
Yeah,
she never thought she was going to be making a film of what happens when you're in lockdown for COVID and all of that. It was just going to be, oh, here we are at Chenrezig. Well, it is just here we are at Chenrezig. Yes. Okay, thank you, thank you.
It's good to follow it. It's a website Chenrezig, a film on Facebook.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, go and like it, like. Okay, cheers. Yeah, so your mind becomes light. Your mind becomes light and you develop a big heart. So we have this cafe called Big Love. So that is this practice of metta, of loving kindness, of bodhicitta. In fact, we could say big love is bodhicitta. Having this mind of great compassion for all beings, this sense of universal love, seeing others as pleasant. So we train our mind, we check when our mind is seeing people or animals or situations as unpleasant, to train the mind to see it as pleasant, not to be ridiculous. We've got to use our wisdom side, but just seeing it as unpleasant only disturbs our minds. So for example, one of our prisoners in the US from the prison project, so he was a Dharma student, and when he was going to be executed, he was like 21 days in lockdown, in isolation. Actually, at the beginning of COVID, I wrote to all the people in prison and said, can you tell us how to cope with isolation? Because you're pretty good at it. Isolation. Anyway, this guy was in like total solitude for 21 days before he was executed, right? And he'd been a Dharma practitioner. He'd met the Dharma in prison, and he was part of this international organization. And when the prison, this is very unusual, because usually, anyway, they allowed him to make international phone calls. They didn't realize he was part of an international organization. And then at some point, because his mentor was in France, writing to him, one of the students at Institute Vajrayogini, and me in Australia, and Venerable Rubino, I think, was in Australia as well at that time. And so he's making all these international phone calls. At some point they said, you've got to stop with the international phone calls. So what we would do, overcome the obstacles, Skype the US office, our US office, and get them to ring the US office. So it was a domestic call in the same time zone, as it turned out. And so we were able to talk that way at the time. Pretty cool, huh? Now we could just zoom in and, oh, well, he couldn't zoom in. That's the thing. He couldn't zoom in. But the point I wanted to make was towards the end of his life, and so he had, apart from his practice book, we've got sent his notebook of practices, amazing. He had Vajrasattva practice, so purification practice, and Bodhisattva's way of life. They were his two texts that he had with him, and doing those practices. And there was a nun who, there were two people locally, one who'd been already mentoring him for a long time. She'd been visiting him previously. And she would ring, and this nun would ring, and they'd do practices together. And when he could ring internationally, we'd do all the practices together over the phone. And so, anyway, this woman rang, and he said, and he could hear the birds in her backyard. And he just said, in the Pure Land, that's where a Buddha realm, the birds sing Dharma. You know, and so he listened to the Dharma through the singing of the birds. And they say in the Pure Land, the wind, the breeze in the trees is like, you know, the tinkling of bells, and hearing mantra and so forth, that, you know, every sound. So we can think about that. I was thinking about, you know, you hear sounds that you have an aversion to. And if you actually just think about that sound, transform that sound, dissolve that sound, as it says, you know, where does, you know, we know the aversion to that arises in our mind, but we blame the sound, you know. Like, for example, I remember being on Katoomba railway station after a teaching at the Dharma Centre, and I think it was like a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon, and it's across the road from the pub with this jarring music blaring out, and you just think, well, first of all, I thought of those poor people in there having their bodies rattled by the sound, but they seem to be enjoying themselves. But it was rather, you know, as one of our guys said, in your face. And you just have to go, you know, why be disturbed by that? Just transform the way you're engaging that, and then you feel more happy, right? The sound hasn't changed, it's still the same, but you feel happier about that. Anyway, so this is what we're here doing now, benefits. You become happy, your mind becomes very soft and light, you develop a big heart, you're not easily disturbed, and other people feel comfortable in your company. And if we're bodhisattvas training on the path, we need to attract others to us. Doesn't mean we have to invite them all to live with us, but we need to attract others so that we can benefit them. I mean, it's you know, hello, I'm here to benefit beings, but nobody comes my way. Everyone runs the other way. It doesn't work. So, and it says there are no obstacles to your Dharma practice. I think that might be like Candrila said, no obstacles, only challenges, because there are challenges. If they're not challenges, then they say we're not progressing on, we're not doing our practice properly. So I was speaking to, I don't think I told this one yesterday. Did I tell this one yesterday? You can tell me if you remember. So I was speaking to one of our people here who's taken over a management role on a sort of interim phase, whatever our interim phase is. And he used to be a manager down there at Daytong Ling on Kangaroo Island. Did I mention this yesterday? Anyway, so he was he said, because yeah, I was talking about like, Rachel, if you don't mind me saying, wants to, you know, maybe do come here and take the opportunity to do some retreat. So, you know, and so we had been just talking about it the day before about, oh, people can come up here and do personal retreat. And like, we've got the space, we've got the retreat cabins, you know, cafe's not working, but, well, coffee and cake's working, but, you know, so slowly, not yet meals. But, you know, people can self-cater, you know, whatever. It's not that difficult. And I said, we have to have people shopping. He said, oh, that was my most stressful job, was shopping. And I said, really? They just give you a list and you go and get it. I said, oh, no, and they've got to have a particular brand. He said, IGA at, what is it, Kingston on Kangaroo Island, it's got limited brands, you know. Oh, and I said, well, you just get them under the brand. Oh, no, they didn't like that brand. I was like, oh, well, they can take that into their retreat. It says not to, this is why they say don't have too many, be content with what you have and don't have too many desires when you go into retreat, because you sort of have to adjust to what's available and you've got to work on your mind and stuff comes up. That's the whole point. So he said one time he got this tea for this guy. He got the wrong tea. It was extra strong. And so this guy was having heart problems. And so the manager had to drive him to the doctor for all these checkups and tests and so forth. And he said every time, and he said this went on for a long time, he blamed me. He said his heart problems were because you brought me that tea. It's just like, did you check with the cardiologist? I don't think they would have agreed with that. I don't think I've heard that one. I mean, it was just like, it was too strong, so you can dilute it.
It's stressful shopping for.
There you go. Venerable Wongmo very kindly has been shopping for nuns, and now she's confessing how stressful that was. Oh my God.
And organic sugar-free soy milk.
Organic sugar-free soy milk. I know where to get that. Oh, all power to Venerable Wongmo. That's what Wongmo means. Powerful woman. Great. Thank you very much. She's transformed IGA at Malula. Well, so everything appears as a good sign. All miserable conditions appear as auspicious. So when we have our nightmares, because they say we have auspicious dreams, and that's, you know, they actually say, when you do have so-called auspicious dreams, better not to talk about them too much, because, I mean, you might want to talk to somebody just to check up, you know, your dream. But not to go telling everyone, oh, I had this most amazing dream, because you weaken the energy of it. It's no longer precious and cherishing it. So when I say auspicious dreams, you might dream of the Buddha or Lama, or actually one of the things, somebody who was dying, I can't remember who tells this story, and they saw a whole, you know, as they were parting this life, they saw this whole lineup of monks playing ritual instruments like they were a procession. It was just like, wow, being guided to, I don't know, the monastery, I don't know. They said she had no problems. So there can be good signs. But we can see when there aren't good signs, when there are negative signs, or what we label negative signs, to say, fantastic, great. Of course, the mind just doesn't want to do that. It's just like, you've got to be joking. Like, that's weird. Maybe I'm the only one who's weird and thinks that's weird.
One thing to say.
It's one thing to say, it's another thing to do. It's practice, 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 practice. So we're looking at different ways how to do it. Okay, so let's look at that. How do we do it? Okay, so go, moving right along. So we're first of all, dissolving problems. So dissolving problems is realize that, you know, we say, I have a problem, and the problem is out there and it's solid, and it might be a person. You are my problem. nothing to do with me, isn't it? So we have it as concrete, as inherent, as existing out there from its side, nothing separate from me. Hasn't got anything to do with my mind, hasn't got anything to do with how I perceive the situation. It's there, right? That's what we do. And so, and then we project all these things onto it. Like yesterday, I was talking about, you know, suffering of change and how, you know, you fall in love with someone, then they move in and it changes. You start to get irritated by things because previously you overinflated all their positive qualities. You know, they were just like the dream, I don't know, whatever. And then they move in, or, you know, time goes on and you start to see faults, which you see occurring from their side. Again, nothing to do with you. Even you might say, oh, you've changed. Well, we're all changing moment by moment, but at a subtle level. But apart from that, you can say it's not, what's changed is our perception. We're seeing things differently. In other words, you're not doing what I want you to do. Or in fact, you're doing what I don't want you to do. So that's basically the subtext of you've changed. So it's all their fault, right? We point out there. So all of this. And so we see that we unconsciously do this. We make it out there. We make it the other as the source of all our problems. And we interpret it and label it that way. And then we build up, when we're irritated, then we build up the ugliness. Suddenly, this person who walked on air, you can't stand the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they dress. They're still doing all the same way. The job they have, the people they hang out with, I don't know, the colour, whatever, the hairstyle, everything, isn't it? We exaggerate. And so from one little thing that aggravated our mind, it becomes everything. So our minds are doing this all the time, you know. So, yeah. And we go over and over it in our mind and we make it more and more concrete, more and more real in our mind. Have you ever had in your mind, like you're attracted to someone and then you play out the whole relationship and nothing's happened, including divorce, right? So you don't go there. It's like, I just made the movie. There you go. Or as a friend of mine who he wanted to study psychology, and then he read all the, you know, what you're going to cover over the 4 years or however many years. And he said, I can't do that. And I was just like, I think that's why you study, is to learn how to do that. So here we are. We're not at the end. We're not Buddhas yet. Okay. We're not bodhisattvas yet. We're certainly not Arya bodhisattvas, but we're making the aspiration. So baby little steps. First of all, we're shifting the way we're thinking. So that's what we're doing here, shifting the way we're thinking. So, yeah. Yeah, so to shift the way we're thinking, we have to loosen this stubborn mind, this fixation, this wanting everything permanent and the way we want it and so forth, and putting the blame out there. So at one time I had a teacher who said to me, meditate on your stubbornness. Oh, well, I actually thought, oh, I can do that. So I sat down to investigate my stubbornness. It was exactly this concrete slab. And I thought, that's right. Well, I got it to a sort of thick black sludge, and I thought, oh, hey, that's progress. It's not concrete, it's a sludge. Oh, I was very happy with myself. Yeah, so Venerable Rene Fusy, I was watching a teaching of his where he was talking about all our strong emotions are there because we think the whole world and everybody in it, everything, every object, everything is solid, permanent, unchanging, fixed out there. And we are solid over here, but all of that's only a dream. That's our illusion. That is, in other words, incorrect. That's not true. There's no essence to that reality. So even now in physics, as a branch out of quantum physics, this relational physics, this is exactly what they're saying, that everything is changing momentarily, and that by every interaction, it changes the molecules in the space in between, that this constant change, we can't see that. We can see impermanence at one level. Yes, my hair's going grey, I've got more wrinkles, I mean, there's many, many things obvious, but clothes wear out. We didn't see the wearing out. We only saw it when the hole came or whatever, or where it got worn to it enough for the mind to see, so very manifest. But subtly, things are changing moment by moment by moment, everything. And because things are changing moment by moment, including our mind, we can transform it in the direction we want it to, rather than it's been just hijacked by our emotions and blah, 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 and this train of thought that's just been going on incessantly, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and we've just got caught up in the flow, sort of drowning in it, really. Okay, so like this. So I've got a note to myself that the oh yeah. So we need to loosen this current framework, allow ourselves to step back into a more objective witnessing mode. We're witnessing our mind. This is what we're doing. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when he was some years ago interviewed by Kerry O'Brien on the 7:30 report. That's how many years ago, right? It was quite a while ago, right? He's on the 7:30 report these days. I don't know. Huh? Lee Sales. Huh?
It's just called 7:30.
Oh, it used to be 7:30 report. Now it's 7:30. 7:30, that show. Okay. So he was being interviewed about, so Kerry's saying to him, when you see the devastation and what's happening in your country, Tibet, don't you get angry? Must make you angry. And His Holiness said, I observe anger arise in my mind and I observe it fade away. 1 minute. He didn't say I cognitively fuse with anger. He didn't say I'm a very angry person, which means you've overinflated yourself as being the angry person. And we investigate that and we say, if you're an angry person, what happens when you love someone? Where does your anger go? Right? Are you angry all the time you're asleep? Because I think they're two contradictory modes, isn't it? Anger and sleep. I mean, I guess you can have an angry sleep, but I don't think it's a restful one, right? But you might be someone very habituated to anger. Yes, my mind is very habituated. I don't have to think, I think I'll get angry now. It just sort of arises because I didn't recognize when it was a slight irritation in my mind. And then suddenly came out the mouth, came out in my actions. Regrettable emotional episode. It's one of my favorite phrases to say, not to do, to remind me not to do. It's just like, I don't know where that came from. Some of the quotes on people put on social media, and then they regret it afterwards. In fact, sometimes it's very costly for them. They might lose their job because they've just allowed the uncontrolled mind to guide the fingers towards the keypad, the keyboard or whatever. And all of a sudden it's out there. Blah. So we don't have to think about that. Why? Because we've trained our mind in anger many, many lifetimes. It's not natural to us. Anything that's negative is not in the nature of our mind, but it feels like it is, doesn't it? Feels like. And this is based on the mind, as the Buddha said, of dissatisfaction, discontent, irritation, frustration. So of course, when we're irritated, when we're frustrated, we're going to be more prone to anger, because it's like yesterday I was talking about this emotional alert database, There's like We're looking for the things that are going to confirm, aha, see, told you so. And so we're looking for things that fit in with that worldview, angry worldview. Anyway, His Holiness said, I observe anger. So this is just taking this step back and going, right, there's observe it. There's anger in my mind. How do you know there's anger in my mind? Well, when I get angry, there's certain thoughts that I recognize are a very familiar train of thought of my anger, my irritation, my frustration, my, whatever. Thoughts of revenge, superiority, all those things. Then we get into pride. Okay. So with the anger one, and His Holiness said the reason I could do that was because I practiced meditation since I was 6 years old. So it doesn't mean it's too late for us. Oh, no, he didn't say practice. He said I've meditated, which is practice, since I was 6 years old. So, of course, we can say, well, I'm not 6 years old. But you can see if we start to train our mind, which is what we're talking about, we can gain this skill. We have to get familiar with our mind, recognize what's arising in our mind. So we cultivate this mindfulness of our thinking. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche talks about the faults of anger, of course, but then says the anger, the mind of aversion. But in fact, and the presentation usually is first the mind of attachment, the mind of desire, because the mind of aversion arises when desire doesn't get what it wants, when I don't get what I want, when my mind doesn't get what it wants, when I don't get the nice sounds, I get the terrible sounds, etc., etc., etc. When the chai, it's not like the one we had yesterday. Today, it's with oat milk. Now that's a different flavour. You just enjoy the different flavour. Or you go, oh, I like the one yesterday. Compare and contrast, Or you can say, very kindly, Venerable Dachin makes chai for us every morning. How wonderful. That's value-added chai. Tastes even better. Thank you, Venerable Dachin. Okay, so this is how it goes. Why is desire even worse? It's harder to identify. Our mind, because it feels good, we don't go, oh, why am I feeling good? We do go, why am I feeling bad? Or why am I feeling angry? Oh, maybe we don't even do that enough, but it disturbs us, rattles us in a way that we don't want that. But the desire, it's very seductive, just sort of drawn to, and this happens all day, every day, the senses, the nice sounds, the nice taste, the nice smell, everything. We're constantly being drawn in. This is one of the biggest distractions for our meditation, actually. It's, people sit in meditation, they say, oh, I had a great meditation. There I was blissed out. And I'm like, you're supposed to be meditating on your breath. And I bet it felt good. Yeah, but you were supposed to be meditating on your breath. What's your object of meditation? No, but it felt good. Yeah. So it's sneaky, isn't it? So Lama Zopa Rinpoche says about cutting off desire, sort of the thought. Yeah, just let me read.
Jack, isn't it best not to cut it off, but to just observe the desire, the anger arising, and then it tends to fade away once you observe it, rather than if you try to cut it off, then you get more involved with it.
Okay, so what I mean by cutting it off, it's not cutting it off, it's not following it. So Graham's right, Graham's saying, isn't it about not cutting it off? I mean, we live in a desire realm, we're going to have desire. It propels us to even get up in the morning, probably. I mean, we'd like to say, I bound out of bed for the benefit of all sentient beings, but I'm a work in progress, just like everybody else. One, I don't bound. It's a bit harder to bound as you get older. Anyway, you're correct. So we recognize the desire and go, you get me into trouble. So of course, if you're working on an addiction, that's very clear. That's desire that's gone, attachment that's gone to, out of control. But we've all got desire all the time arising. It's to recognize that and say, desire based on the senses will never be satiated and will never be a source of reliable happiness, because the senses aren't reliable. In other words, even, you know, every mouthful of ice cream got better and better and better and better and better and better and better. I think at some point you're going to feel ill, right? So it's not reliable. Okay, so in the refuge ceremony, you know, when we become Buddhists, taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, the three rare sublime ones, we say, I go for refuge to the supreme, this is part of it, cessation of attachment. So we start to investigate how desire gets us into trouble. So, or attachment, looking at the attachment to friends, families. I mean, when we look at the death, contemplations about death, we have to convince ourselves that at the time of death, nothing's going to help us, not family, not friends, not medicines, not even the body's not reliable. Because we've got to leave the body behind. We are hugely attached to our bodies. Look how much time we spend looking after the body. On one sense, we want to look after the body, because even like when I ordained, a monk, I was going to say senior monk, everyone was senior to me when I ordained, so he was definitely a senior monk. He said to me, there's no point getting sick because then you can't benefit anybody. So you've got to look after the body to be a benefit, and to use your body to be a benefit, which means, that can be doing what you do, but using it to work on your mind, to develop these, courageous qualities to benefit others. So we have this in the refuge prayer. Cessation of attachment, because anger, all the other afflictive minds arise in dependence upon that, right? Which arises in dependence on our root ignorance, of course. We cut that one off, we cut off all the others. But I think it's easy for us to work with the desire and really bring it consciously to mind. I mean, enjoy things that you have. Like, Tetsuma Tenzin Palmer, when she ordained, and her friend, the princess, took her off to her palatial abode to stay. She said, I can't stay there. It's luxurious. I've just renounced all of that. Look, I'm dressed in, the uniform. No, I don't think she wore, because I saw photos of her younger, I don't think she wore earrings, actually. It's quite interesting, I'll just say, pre-ordination. Because, and I said this to somebody else who ordained, I probably said it to a few people as I was preparing for ordination, and said, stop wearing jewelry, And when I discovered I stopped wearing jewelry, nobody noticed. And that's this other one that I said to, and she said, yeah, nobody said anything that you stopped wearing jewelry. It was interesting. Just let go of these things. Of course, we wear our problems as our ornaments. Okay, so exaggerating the beauty of something can't stop attachment. The more you see problems as suffering, the more unbearable they become. That's true, isn't it? If we just make the problem bigger than it is, we create a problem on top of the problem, on top of the problem, on top of the problem. And then that's very debilitating. Then we can't handle it. Whereas if we're like Miller Raper going, oh, great, this is something I can work with. I can train my mind with this. Now, we don't have to pick the most difficult situation in our life to start with. In fact, just pick some small thing that you can think, oh, actually, I remember, when students would come in and say, this works. I don't get angry with the boss anymore, So it's fantastic. Great, and rejoice in that. So we slowly. So we're dissolving the problems. We're looking at where in the problem is the problem. Which part of the problem is a problem? My mind has labeled problem. My mind is labeled difficulty because it's not in sync with how I wanted things to pan out today. So we develop this mindfulness. We familiarize with our mind cultivating mindfulness. So when you're, say, meditating and thoughts arise, you can, if you're cultivating the mind, so we have the 4 close applications of mindfulness, the mindfulness of the breath. Sometimes it's the mindfulness of the body in the breath, the mindfulness of feeling, which is sensations, whether they're pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. That itself is very useful. Just sitting and being aware, oh, there's nice warmth there in my thigh. Oh, that feels good. I mean, you can see how my mind is elaborating, right? Getting a whole story, but just noticing my mind goes towards that and goes away from the slight tension I'm feeling over that side. And so what you're observing is that sensations are arising all the time, and all the time the mind is categorizing pleasant, unpleasant, or disregarding. In other words, not being aware of the whole rest of the body because it's neither pleasurable nor non-pleasurable. So, and then you can see, that dissolves. So it doesn't last. It's warm and then it's not, or it's pleasant and then it's not, and then something else pops up. You don't go looking for things. I mean, you just scan through your body and notice. And like observing the thoughts, you let it go, you let it go, you let it go. You just notice how busy the mind is every nanosecond. Pleasant, unpleasant, neither. Pleasant, unpleasant, neither. Doing it all the time. You're not trying to activate the mind into those states. You're simply observing when it does that. When it doesn't do that, just look, then just abide in equanimity and think how wonderful, because neither the pleasant nor pleasant are yanking your mind here and there. And even when you're wanting to sit in meditation, like, I used to be, when I was at Vajrayana Institute in Sydney, in a city centre with a house right next door. And there was a Greek couple. I think the woman still lives there. Her husband died. But they would have their mates, their friends over, and they'd party out the back. Oh, it wasn't loud. It was, loud. It wasn't out of control party. They were just joyful. And I was just thankful it was all Greek because I don't understand Greek. Otherwise the mind goes, doesn't it? Oh, I see. Oh. We easily get distracted by the senses. So just notice that. Just observe that. Hey, look, we're all in the same club. This is not to criticize, to judge, just to be familiar. Yeah. And look how, and then the thoughts arising, what is it I'm thinking of? Thought, happy thought, sad thought. You're not trying to analyze the thought. And and just let it be like an echo, like a mirage. So what is a thought anyway? Ever thought about what a thought is? It's a mental moment. It's an event of the mind. And so what is the mind? Mind is like space. It's not matter. It's not physical. We make the thought so solid. It's so real. Because I thought it, it's fact. Look how many times that got us into trouble. Or we were proven wrong. I thought it, so therefore it's true. Well, no. It's a mere mental moment arising. And, when we're wanting to focus on the breath and our mind gets yanked to the thought, what do? We just let it dissolve back into the space of mind because it's in the nature of space. So it's immaterial. It's not something tangible. This is why we sometimes say, like the clouds in the sky. The thoughts are like the clouds in the sky. Just let them go. Thoughts will come. It's the job of the mind to think. That's its job. So they will come, they will go. Let them come and go, but don't get hooked into their story. Just observe them coming and going. And we can, because if you went to reach a cloud, it looks something solid and real sometimes, doesn't it? I mean, sometimes it looks all fluffy and flighty. But if you went to grab it, there'd be nothing in your hand. It would just evaporate. So a thought is like that. It's actually got no substance. Of course, ironically, at the same time, we're trying to train our thinking to go in the direction we want it to, the positive thoughts. But we can observe, there's a slight irritation there. Release, 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 let it go. It's too late when it's fully developed anger. But as a slight irritation, I have the power to release it. Or it's a thought of bliss when I'm supposed to be focusing on my breath. Thank you very much. That's not my meditation now. When I want to meditate on bliss, I'll go and hang out at the beach and have a cafe latte. So we gently and matter-of-fact way just repeat, echo this thought of so-and-so did this to me. Oh yes, I know this train of thought. This has got me into trouble in the past. This is familiar. Having a thought, I should not be angry. That's right, I'm not supposed to be angry. Angry destroys all my merits from beginningless time, so I get irritated at that. Oops. Oh, I'm not supposed to be doing that. And then Mike gets so confused, isn't it? Right. Or, how dare you do that to me? Me. You shouldn't be like that. Or, not even you're doing to me, but, oh, they think they're a Dharma student. How dare you? Whatever. You know, this critical, judgmental mind, we observe it and notice it. We don't beat ourselves up for it. Fantastic. I noticed that. That's not healthy. Let it go. That's not healthy. Let it go. I mean, if you did that to every thought of the day, I mean, just thinking about that is exhausting. Because they say we have 50,000 thoughts, or 60 or 70 or 80 or 90, depending on who you read the things from. I suppose it depends on if you're ADHD or not, I'm not sure. I don't know, just different studies say different things. How they judge how many thoughts you have in a day is a mystery to me. And then they say 3,000 of those are new ones. Well, 3,000, 4,000, I don't care how many are new ones, but let's make all the new ones good ones. Take the opportunity, you know, jump in. Okay, so we're not aiming to get rid of the thoughts, just keep that in mind, just becoming aware, mere thought, merely labelled by mind, thought. Release the energy around that. And then if they are thoughts of desire, we can notice that. You don't have to be sitting on a cushion. Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, it's good to go into the shopping centre. Now we can. And go and look at the shops. No, what do we say? Window shopping. And look what the mind gets attracted to. Don't buy it. You might drive yourself broke if you do that. But just observe what the mind gets attracted to. I mean, you're sort of nodding, sort of familiarity. So that, you know, because I can, maybe Hannah's practiced this already. I'm not buying that. I'm not going down that aisle. No, I don't eat that, or I don't wear that, or whatever. It's interesting because once you ordain, I said, because these two are newly ordained, they've probably realised already. Suddenly you see the maroon colour of anything and you're, oh, that's maroon. No, that's not something you need to know about. Does that happen? Yeah. So our colour selection, we've cut out a whole lot, but the mind still goes to that. Even my Theravadan friends, so I don't know if anyone's followed the Theravadan path, but no, monk and nun friends tell me, you know, if it's not yours, you don't touch it, right? So even a sheet of paper, so the sheet of paper's there. If it's not my sheet of paper, I don't even lifting one corner's a fault, right? Because it's not yours. But you know, I'm on a committee with some of my Theravadan monk friends, and I remember one of them coming to the office when I was down there in Sydney. He didn't touch the sheet of paper, but his eyes went. Now, I'm not criticising him. It's just how we make contact with the object. So the hand, he knew the hands couldn't. It was beautiful discipline, beautifully disciplined. But the eyes wanted, you know. Oh, I'm not moving my hands, but my eyes are moving. And we just observe that, you know. We don't beat ourselves. We just say, yeah, this happens all the time. Well, I'm doing this all the time. So, and chill out. And then when thoughts come fast and furious, and we're sitting there in meditation, then we suddenly realize I got hijacked off onto some stream of thought. Or even worse, driving down the freeway. How did I get here? You know? I think that last 20 minutes, I wasn't even conscious of that because our bodies learn how to do the driving on automatic. And I mean, some part of our mind, at least our eyes are observing the road, and some part of our mind is there, but the greater part of our minds is preoccupied in other sorts of thoughts. And so we just notice that and try and be present with the whole thing. Ajahn Brahm was saying, when they were driving into the monastery and being, sort of going, was I aware of the trees? Was I aware of the road? Was I aware? Was I present, So cultivating that sort of aspect of mindfulness. Having lots of, when they come, echo them. Having lots of thoughts about a past incident. Oh, I'm just reliving the past. The past is gone. Let it go. Especially if it's reliving a past to make yourself really unhappy by reliving a negative situation. And then we build that up and it's like, it is gone, as the story of the monks crossing the river. And I can't remember.
Carrying the old lady?
Was that carrying the old lady? No, that was the one where she turned into Vajrayogini, wasn't it? No, that's a different one. Anyway, the whole point was one of them said to the other, a year ago you did this to me, that to me, and that, He said, oh, I put down that load a year ago. Why are you still carrying it? Anyway, that was that one. But also, if we're looking at something like shamatha practice, or developing this calm, abiding mind, wanting our mind to be still, what problems arise? What's the biggest problem that first arises? Excitement, excitation, the active mind, the overactive mind. We're sitting down, we're thinking it's all going to be peaceful. It will eventually be, but it takes a lot of hard work to get to that point. So you're sitting there thinking it's going to be peaceful any moment, blah, 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 blah. It's not. And there's this cascade, this torrent of thoughts. It's described as that, as this endless cascade. And so there are 9 levels of progress along developing this mind of calm abiding. In other words, getting the mind calm and it abiding there, it's staying there where you want it. So then you can use it in an analytical way. But what happens for the first 4 stages? First 4 out of 9 stages is blah, 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 blah. Okay, it goes from coarse to medium to subtle exaltation, but you also have then coarse laxity, medium subtle, where your mind, either it's overexcited or it just sort of dull, sleepy, sludgy, heavy, like this. So we have also in those sort of practices antidotes to give, but the point here is just saying it takes a very long time for, not for the thoughts to disappear, but for the mind to subdue by that. So echoing in a more objective mode, recognizing a thought as a thought, we bring mindfulness to that. That sustain the tunnel vision of different sides. So this is the thing, we can also look at our problems or our thoughts from different perspectives, isn't it? We can turn it around and look at it from a different angle, or look at it from the point of view of somebody else might look at it. So, and then we develop this understanding that the situation that occurs now and my reaction to it comes from my learned past behavior, hence the emotional alert database, and meeting the actual conditions for that to ripen. And we also have to say, in terms of a negative, when we're looking at negative situations, even, we say, oh, it's not really helpful to my mind, but yes, it is a ripening of past karma, that there is some history there, and that's being purified in that moment. We don't think it's being purified. We think it's being a nuisance, But, sometimes we have, by applying different methods like this, mindfulness of the thoughts, mindfulness of the sensations of the body, feelings, and then we extend that out to other phenomena, we gain a different perspective. When I was doing theatre training, we literally took that into creating, the problem. We did a lot of, and it was sort of we used our own bodies as aspects of the problem and, you know, built up all these scenarios, and then you had your obstacles come in, you know, I'll be an obstacle, and then your supports come in, and then looking at it, making it like a statue garden, and then looking from different perspectives. Where's there a way in? Where's a way we can change this? How can we transform this? And then making this where I want to be. How do I get there? What are the steps? So there's so many different ways, creative ways we can look at these. Okay. And so Venerable Sangye Kadro in Kathleen MacDonald, better known as Kathleen MacDonald, How to Meditate. I mean, on that book, Kathleen MacDonald, Venerable Sangye Kadro. So she's a very, 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 very long-term practitioner, serious meditator, although she says, I don't know anything about meditation, but because I wrote this book, I get asked to teach about it. Now, when I met her, when she was presenting at one of our conferences, and early on, or she's presented at a few, but anyway, in Sydney, I met her, and when she wasn't teaching, she was in her room meditating. So I think she might know a thing or two about meditation. But she's got a whole section dealing with negative energy. That's exactly what we want to know about in it. So there's another way that seeing it's our wrong view, grasping at this I we were talking about yesterday as the source of all my happiness, and by getting that wrong, then the attachment arises, and then when that doesn't get what it wants, the anger arises. So in this, she looks at all different ways of dealing with attachment, and then anger, and then fear and depression and so forth. Examine the faults of attachment. Examine the mind that experiences attachment. That's what we were just talking about, you know. What does that desire do? And familiarize with the 12 links of dependent origination, that when the contact with the object and the feeling arises, and say a pleasant feeling, then grasping, then clinging, it gets stronger, right? That we, you know, the yearning, what is it, that song? Constant craving, constant, it sets up that constant craving. Then we want more, we want bigger, we want better, we want, and we don't even know how the mind got to that point. So we've got to look at that. So we've got to realize that this is not a peaceful state of mind. When desire gets what it wants, we bliss out. But how long does that bliss out last? It's very temporary. Then, as we say, what goes up has to come down, isn't it? Okay. And that, in other words, we can experience a loss of separation from the object, or pain of relationships ending, etc. Recall that all things are impermanent, you know, meditate on the that attractive, pleasant thing is not always going to, event is not always going to be pleasant and attractive. Analyze that, and, you know, so the pleasure itself is impermanent. It's in a state of change. Okay, so we can't really be completely satisfied with any one object. And this was the first teaching of the Buddha, the dissatisfaction, dukkha, that's our suffering, the dissatisfied mind. And think, where does the attachment arise? There's no inherent deliciousness in the chocolate cake. If there was inherent deliciousness, if chocolate cake was delicious from its own side, was there chocolate cake here yesterday? Was there cake? Did anyone get cake?
There was cake, but I didn't.
Oh, okay. I don't think there's. Anyway, it's not inherently delicious from its own side, you know. So somebody, when I was living at Vajrayana Institute, there'd be somebody who said, "I love chocolate," and one of the monks there said, "You can't love chocolate. I mean, you can like it, but you can't love it." Oh no, I love chocolate. But if it was from its own side, then everybody would love chocolate. And then every being in every realm of existence would love chocolate because it will be an inherent source of happiness, right? And we know you don't give chocolate to your dogs because it's harmful. Mind you, they might still love it. I'm not sure. They love it? Yeah, they probably do. No, they don't. Thank you, Venerable Wong Mo. Everyone does not. She knows I don't. And you do the same with anger. You know, you look at anger. We'll look at this more next weekend when we look at the 8 verses, thought transformation. But we look at the disadvantages of anger. That's pretty easy, right? We can see, where has anger ever got us a happy result for ourselves? Where has being the recipient of anger ever got us a happy result? And then, of course, in the Bodhisattva's way of life, the whole chapter on patience of how to think about that and think about it in terms of a karmic result arising. So if someone's angry with me and I feel it's totally unjustified because I'm a very nice person, if it wasn't something I did now, then it must have been something in the past, either this life or a previous life. And that moment is ripening now. So if I can think about like that, you know, they're cheating, they're stealing my stuff, they're bad-mouthing me, blah, 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 blah. I must have done something as a cause for that. Now, we can often say, yeah, I get that at an intellectual level, but it doesn't really stick in the heart, you know, that. But we're training our mind. We're training our mind. We can also put ourselves into the place of that person. As we say, hurt people, hurt people. You know, what's it like to experience anger? We can identify it in our own body, you know, the heat, the tensing up, you know, fist pumping. I mean, it may not be a whole, you know, it may not be standing around like that, but the feeling's there. You know, it's a contraction. It's a contracting mind. It's, you know, jaw clenching. It's shortness of breath and very uncomfortable for the mind, very disturbing for the mind. So we can have compassion that the person is having that. At the same time, in the face of rage, you get the hell out of there. I mean, we've got to use our wisdom side as well. But in the safety of our meditation room, we can generate a mind of compassion to all those. There's a lot of anger in the world, isn't there? It's so prevalent. And to check our own minds. You know, if our minds, if you wake up and go, oh, I feel in a foul mood, there's going to be a greater tendency towards irritation and anger and so forth in your mind, because it's sort of like you've got that mood, you know, that a mood is, you know, sort of longer than just a moment of anger. You know, it's even longer than a few moments of anger. It's just like it's settled in for the duration, you know. And that too is impermanent. It doesn't feel it. It feels very stuck there. We feel very stuck there, right? Okay. So we use different ways to change our perspective, okay? So in time, we come to an intuitive understanding of the facts of the situation. Yeah, I said that. And, you know, another thing too, particularly when we think about how this makes everything in our body and mind contract, it's just like with stubbornness, you know, release that energy so that the body can be more relaxed. The body can be more relaxed. Even if we have to go, you know, a whole body scan, top of the head, tips of the toes, back way up again and again, softening, relaxing, soothing. Release, relax, let go. And allowing the mind to be more spacious, to take a bigger perspective on things, because it's usually like when we get angry, the mind narrows down, isn't it? Our vision. It's like this, honing in, intense. So you just sort of relax that mind, be more spacious, be more open, be more, go outside and look at the sky, particularly if there's no clouds in it. I used to do that at Vajrayana Institute, go outside. This is a city centre, right? And then I'd look up and go, is there enough sky that I can see just sky? Sometimes you have to go further afield, but just focus on the space. Of course, I went to, when they built the forensic hospital at Long Bay, and I went there, and one of the guys who was in a solitary cell, and he said, come out here. I've got this tiny bit of yard, and the wire that they had, there's a sort of very, very thick one. He said, I can't see the sky. And it's very thick and it's got tiny holes. And even getting up right close to the wire, you can't see space. So I said, don't worry, no problem. Well, that is a problem, but we can transform it. So just go back into your room and we'll put up all pictures of sky and space. And then you'll have it on your walls, So we've got to do what we can, just to remind you. Because we take it for granted, what do? We want to go out into the outdoors, like we're going to do here in a few minutes. I mean, we have such a perfect environment here. We don't have that particular suffering, so we can rejoice in that. Looking at different alternatives. So this outline presents the 8 verses of thought transformation, which is going to be, we'll be spending the whole of next weekend going through those, how to look at situations. And it gets, as I mentioned yesterday, each verse offers you a greater and greater challenge for changing our perspective, changing our state of mind, because we can. So isn't it true that when the judgmental mind judges other people by our actions, their actions, and ourselves by our intention? But I had a good intention. It's a big trap. Oh yes, I'm not a clairvoyant. I can't see other people's minds. I mean, a Buddha can see that intention. I can't see that intention. So I'm judging by their action. But actually, give them the benefit of the doubt. Their intention may have been good. I mean, there's sometimes you absolutely know the intention's not good, but where the intention is good, of course, those of us who've taken bodhisattva vows, if we can see their intention isn't good and the action's going to be even worse, where we have the capacity, we are obligated to prevent them from creating negative karma, if you can. But we've got to use our wisdom wing as well as our compassion wing. We've got to use both. However, by and large, we can't see other people's intention, right? But we impute intentions on them all the time. You did that to hurt me. Well, actually, no, I didn't do it to hurt you. I'm sorry you're hurt, but that wasn't my intention. Is it? I mean, maybe it was. Yes, I really want to hurt you real bad. That's true. But no, maybe I didn't want to hurt you real bad. I mean, there's obvious situations where it's clear intention. They have that in law, don't they? Where it was like premeditated or whether it was just accidental or so forth, because you can't tell. So we can't.
Murder and manslaughter.
Yeah, difference between murder and manslaughter, and then there's the different degrees of murder and all of that sort of thing. Okay, so we look at alternative ways of thinking, not to force ourselves, and when we go through the 8 verses, not to force ourselves to think that way, because just notice, even as we discuss all this, where the resistances in the mind arise, and just observe that. Oh, there's my resistance, there's my stubbornness, there's my self-limitation. And our self-limitations are the hardest, Lama Yeshe called this the worst form of laziness. The laziness of, I can't. You're joking, I can't do that. Well, maybe not this nanosecond. Slowly, 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 slowly. Because the lazy mind says, I can't, then I won't even give it a go. And that's what he means is the most disgusting form of laziness, because it cuts us off from all the possibilities that are open to us, which are infinite, because we've already given up. So if I say, I can't achieve enlightenment in this lifetime, Am I being realistic? Or am I, Venerable Yangshin's shaking her head, or am I just being lazy? Yes, thank you. She's agreeing with me. I'm lazy.
We had this conversation last night about the 100,000 prostrations. You'll never finish them if you don't start them.
Yes, the Venerable Wagmo just said for those online, if you didn't hear, did you hear? She said, the conversation went last night, I'll never do the 100,000 prostrations. And then the response was, well, no, if you don't start them, you never will do them. That is true. Yeah. Actually, Geshe Lakpa, Lakto, Tibetan Works and Archives, I was watching him. I saw these good mornings because he said, I come in here and I say good morning and you say good morning. Is it a good morning? Are we good? Are we, you know, even investigating that. He said, of course, I don't want to, we don't come in and say bad morning, you know. So even that is putting our mind in a positive state, I think was the point he was making. Okay. Okay. Right. So we look at different perspectives. We do look at different angles. How can I view this situation differently? How can I see it from that person's perspective? Doesn't mean I agree with their perspective, but see, how is it for that person? As I said, how is anger affecting them? How is desire affecting them? How is addiction affecting them? How is fear affecting them? How is depression affecting them? Or ourselves, you know? And just allow different possibilities for how we respond to situations to settle into our mind without forcing ourselves. Of course, on one level, we do try with our speech and action. We do have to, you know, this is why we take vows, is to contain or restrain ourselves from causing harm. And if we can, to be of benefit. And if you can't do that, well, at least don't say anything. If it's not beneficial, why say anything? It's true. Beneficial doesn't mean every single word that comes out of your mouth has to be the most profound. Yes, if you're a Buddha, it is. But saying good morning is very beneficial. You know, being nice to our friends, very beneficial. Being nice to strangers, even more beneficial. You know, everyone we interact with. So some of you have heard me say before, you know, I went into the chemist one day and I said to the woman, oh, hello. I mean, this is all pre-COVID, so there wasn't some sort of weird mask effect going on or shield effect or anything like that. It was just, you know, in our pre-COVID world. And I was just like, oh, how are you? How's your day? And this woman had tears in her eyes. I'm like, oh, okay. And she said, you're first person to acknowledge my existence today. That was pretty sad. See how profound it can be to acknowledge a smile goes a long way. I love it. This is the easiest practice to do. You know, walking around Nambour, smile at people. You'd be surprised, maybe not, because you're local, how many people smile back. It's wonderful. Maybe it's just because I come from Sydney. You know, not everybody, but I'd like to think even the ones who don't smile back, they put a smile in their heart, put a smile. It's a heart connection, you know. I'm not going, hello, I'm your new best friend, you know. Just don't.
Interesting when they walk on Noosa National Park or somewhere, and some people will look at you and say hello and others don't. And when you do, like if you say smile or say hello, then you get a response straight away. And sometimes I don't say it first and they do, and I think, oh, I'll give, and it just changes.
It changes the dynamic. A smile just changes because you can walk around, because, you know, even actually more so in our COVID world, because we're all doing this social distancing. So you go down the supermarket aisle and you're turning your head this way and they're turning their head that way because you're not wanting to breathe on each other and all sorts of weird, but I call it the virus shuffle that we do. And, but still more important to smile, you know, from a compassionate distance.
Have you noticed that joggers almost never smile?
Yeah, they're trying to, joggers won't be smiling because they're too, yeah, they're focused on their jogging, you know, they're doing the zen of jogging. Clearly you don't jog, Graham, but he does smile a lot. So I like your smile. Because yeah, he smiles a lot. Yeah.
I noticed actually the other day, I was walking up New Street, the National Park there at the first gates, and quite a lot of people were actually smiling and saying good day to me, which it's usually the other way around. They're all happy to get out.
Yeah, people are now happy to get out. So more people are smiling. Let's make that the new normal. Smile and say hello is the new normal.
They actually opened the car park for the National Park.
The excitement, the national park's open, car park's open. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, we've got to cultivate a certain level of tolerance. And this is, you know, coming back to, you know, Richard Gere's sharing that everyone he meets, in his mind, he's thinking, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be well, may you be happy. The very first thought, he said, very first thought to arise, may you be well, may you be happy. So if we practice this enough, it does become spontaneous, that it is the first thought. And not only that, becomes genuine. So this is training in the bodhisattva attitude where it becomes uncontrived. It just naturally arises, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be well, may you be happy. And if you think about it, the wisdom of that as well with the one who's you have difficulty with, because if they're well, if they're happy, the problems disappear because they're well and they're happy. And so you're well and you're happy and everyone around them is well and happy and like that. So anyway, there's a certain tolerance, an openness of the mind, a certain forbearance or patience. So this mind, you know, patience with ourselves, patience with our practice of doing this. Oh, I forgot to do that. Well, now I remembered that I forgot, so now I can do it. You know, that's okay. That's the forgetting. The one I forgot's gone. The new opportunity just arose. And develop confidence, trust in your abilities to shift, to change perspective, to find different and creative ways to interact with others, because we can. I was never so joy-filled as seeing all the things people did in the driving in the danceways, the art on the fence, the making of the herbal potions and having them out there for people to take, and teas, and people so creative. I mean, that guy who did the Elvis thing with the garbage bin, oh, wow. Was it Elvis? Did he do Elvis? I think it was. I think he had the white suit and the... Quite amazing. And actually, Lama Zopa Rinpoche uses Elvis Presley as an example too in that book. You know, he's talking about how he was, seemed to be quite content, you know, beginning of his life and middle of his life and so forth. He watched a documentary about Elvis. Lama Zopa loves watching documentaries, and then you get to hear the perspective of the Holy Mind on all these documentaries. And then he said then towards the end of his life, he got very, he manifested very unhappy, you know, and that his last concert was with that, I can't get no satisfaction, you know, and that really dissatisfied mind. Because didn't he die overeating or something like that? He put on a lot of weight and I don't know his life story. I just know some of his songs. But that was like the last legacy you're going to leave to the world is I can't get no satisfaction. It's pretty depressing.
Was that talking about?
Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he got to...
John talks about how
he was happy. He was happy.
His life and in his book, you know, John very incredibly perceptive, where he sort of admits to all his wrong, you know, his drug taking. So it's an incredible book. I was listening to it on audio book, and there's a bit where he meets Elvis at Graceland somewhere. He gets invited, and Elvis, he said, was just this ashen face, sort of
Ashen
bloated,
face, bloated guy
terrible.
at
You know,
the
he
end.
just didn't understand. But he said,
How he went from there to there.
yeah,
Yeah.
he just
So sad.
downhill so far.
It's so sad.
It's terrible.
So sad. Anyway, so cultivate this confidence, you know, in our abilities, and faith and perseverance, that we've just got to keep trying, and not having expectations, you know, of something in return. Like when I go and smile in the street, I don't actually, now I just do it all the time. And so sometimes I even don't know I'm smiling till someone smiles back, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I was smiling at them. Sometimes I'm not smiling and they smile at me, and it reminds me to smile. So, you know, these very easy interactions. People smile at the robes, that's true. They do smile at the robes. So that's very nice. So that would be, I mean, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when they're having dinner one time in or lunch, having a meal in a restaurant, and the, you know, waiter, what do we say, table person, attendant, trying to be non-gender specific, what do we call it? Anyway, the person who comes and gets your order, and this guy came and he said, I love your dress, where'd you get it? And he went away. And Venerable Roger tells this story. He said, and then, you know, there's often things on the blog, and this was one of them on the online blog. And he said, oh, when he went away, Lama Zopa said, oh, past life in a monastery. Like he was attracted to the robes. So it was quite interesting, wasn't it? I mean, Rinpoche could see that past life. So we couldn't, but he was just like confirming. That's why he just happens to say, love your robes, where'd you get them? I mean, dress. Love your dress. Can I wear that one? Yeah. I mean, I had that on a plane, you know, where actually it happens quite a few times, you know, when I got the number plates, when I got the Queensland number plates, and the woman at the motor registry, thank you, what's it called? It's called something else these days. That's why I'm like, whatever it's called, where you get your number plates. And she said, oh, look, you're all colour coordinated. Your glasses, your bag, your shoes. And she said, and now your number plates. I know, because I said to them down in the office, I said, print off these Queensland, you know, sort of COVID signs. It says, unite and recover, be patient, be kind. I just like, oh, that's such a dark message. And it's in team colours because this is Queensland. Okay, we need to take a tea break. So we'll probably take, like we did yesterday, come back we'll try for 11. Okay, folks. So those of you who are online, like yesterday, you may not all have been here yesterday, but like yesterday, if you want to get yourself a cuppa, that's what we're going to do. And then if you want to unmute yourself and chat amongst yourselves, you know, bring back your cuppa and so forth. And if any of us are back up here in time, we can do the same thing, and we'll keep going at 11. So enjoy your tea break or whatever, and see you soon.
How long do we get?
Till 11, I think.
7 minutes, which is quite ample.
And so if you go down to the cafe, we have tea and milk up here if people want to make something here, and there's herbals as well. And then if you want to go down to the cafe, they've got coffee and cake and yeah, they've yeah. Oh, that's my. Yes, this was.
that was the.
Yes, she made for
Yes.
For Anzac Day.
It must have been somewhere.
And then she gave me another one
Oh,
subsequently.
That's probably the
I
one
had it
that's,
for as long as
that's
Oprah.
one that fell.
Which one from what Ukraine or was it? Well, sort of, it's made of simple system.
Oh, it's smelling good, actually. But I'm impressed nonetheless. I had that point, I think,
I see that.
Oh yeah, my phone is as well. But the phone is because I was given both the phone in the cover. So.
There's a cleaning station here as well, so I can use it.
yes.
I'm going to be I've got 3 compost bins.
Oh, okay.
And then one, in my garden. So they're the sorts of things that I could live there, but if I knew somebody who would, and I would use them and benefit, then I would be happy to empty them out, wash them out, and bring them back. So if you thought you could use 3 of them, and I usually have, they usually get full quite quickly for cuttings and scraps, and so I have, and so they're non deep ones. You just keep filling them up, keep them moist, put the lid on, leave it for 6 months, and I usually put them in my garden beds, and then I don't have to lift them.
What's this second?
Compost bins.
Oh, okay.
And then when they're ready to, because when it's matured, I just, just pick it up, let it all fall out the bottom, spread it around, and they don't tend to get as hot and get rid of all the seeds.
No.
But I don't usually put weeds, but you get the odd tomato ground. And I'll do groceries.
So I was thinking what we do with, because it's not a project for you.
They're very easy
To look after our compost bin.
Oh, okay.
And then the Venerable Road Dog came up and says, oh, that needs attention, We've got a compost bin here.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I saw that we have somewhere.
And we don't, apart from chucking things in it, we don't do anything.
Yeah, well, these you don't need to. You just need to occasionally make sure it's moist. And because the bottom's open and it's on the ground, the earthworms come up. And then they can
I'm not sure if our bottom's open.
No, not on that one. It's not. It's just I think yours is a turning one, or is a stir down.
It needs to stir.
Yeah, the ones that I.
Does it only need a stir? Is that all it needs? Or does it need anything?
Maybe one is an activator, like something like to.
It'd be great if worms could get in.
Yeah.
Because I used to have a worm farm.
Yeah, well, I did when
And I loved it because you just turn on the tap and you've got this wonderful.
So I gave one to Gordon and he's using worms down here because there are different types of worms than the earthworm.
Yeah.
And so I gave all mine to him, but in these compost bins, I've certainly different. Yeah. So yeah, double check if you think you could use the 3. And then I have to turn them out and bring them up.
See how you go, because I had sort of a number
Because
of,
you could have down there.
a number of variations on the sale of my house, and one was all the garden beds stay, the chooks stay, everything, if someone wanted the whole lot. As it was, God wanted it, so I dismantled. And I went back, within a week, he actually knocked down all the mature trees and everything.
Oh my goodness, you have to
Yes. I mean, I knew he was going to do it, so it wasn't a surprise, but,
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing about my garden, I can know that the advice that will change things.
yes.
That you have to let it go because it's not only yours.
Yeah, but somebody might say, can you leave all this, and
Yeah, we'll see how they go. I mean, it depends. Yeah, and it's the sort of thing that I would offer as well to you because
yes,
I know that you would use
Yes.
it, and and $10 again, that
Yes.
doesn't bother me. But if I know that you
yes,
could use it,
yes,
then of course I would bring it to you and then let someone else buy their own unit. Do you know what I mean? So, but I've been down at Tashing House, if you've got a lot of
Yes.
scraps on there, just got to make sure, because I have it dug in a little bit.
we have a rubbish bin that gets emptied into somewhere else.
Probably down to the ones down here,
Yeah,
near the.
I think, yeah, she takes them down and empties them, so.
Yeah, so down near the bins that we used to have for the cafe.
Yes,
And then they've got bricks on them, and then water gets down and takes it down to the compost.
Yeah.
And he brings them back in loads of compost.
Yes.
Which I then, and I can only use it though if I protect the area once I put it in.
Yeah.
Because the turkeys will.
yes,
So that's where you see there's some wire and
yes,
stuff around it because I put fresh compost in there. And
yes,
it stays in there because the soil is so poor.
yes, yeah,
Some plants obviously need that. And it holds the water. And,
yeah, yeah.
So right, you know, and so yeah, so it's a bit of a cycle, but yeah, we'll double check that's the sort of thing.
Yes.
That I'll have, I wonder if, Chunky got these, chicken and this was a chunky.
Anyway, I will see you shortly.
Yes, I'm gonna go down to the bathroom.
Hi there, can you hear me okay online? Someone wants to let me know that you can hear me.
Yes,
You
I
know
can.
we're cooking with gas. Someone send a
Yes.
message or thumbs up or something. Yep, great,
Yep.
thanks. That's all we need. Good, excellent.
So was that just pushing that button? Is that all you
Yep.
have to do? Perfect, that's all.
But I'm not sure it is working.
Someone said they could hear that?
Yep.
Oh.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back here. Welcome back there.
Graham's not far behind.
Graham's not far behind. And Rachel's right there. Okay. Okay. Oh. I need some water. Okay, yeah, just some water just in case I cough. Yeah. Whatever comes. Whatever comes is okay. Okay. Transforming adversity into the spiritual path. Now, this is a continuation of what we've been discussing, but there's a wonderful collection of teachings, essential mind training, or I think the copy I have just says mind training. That's the latest, I think, cover. My cover's just a plain yellow one. I think the hardback's a plain yellow one. So it's a compilation, Essential Mind Training. It's also called the Great Collection. The Great Collection. And it's all what we've been talking about. It's a whole compilation of teachings on Mahayana mind training, thought transformation, Lojong, this genre of teachings. And this particular one compiled by Thubten Jinpa, who's one of the main translators, a very long time now, for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and who is a great scholar and, needless to say, many other things. And so I thought one thing to mention it because Geshe Tenzin Zopa is giving teachings on this currently on Sundays at 5 p.m. So if you go on to FPMTA Australia on YouTube, and this will come up as the next teaching with Geshe. I was trying to think, has anybody been participating in those? I was thinking he might be up to the 7-point mind training, but I'm not sure. Has anybody else been? Which just shows you how much I've retained since last Sunday in my mind. Anyway, so he's going through this classic teaching. And so it was, pre-COVID, Geshe Zopa had a trip planned for all of us centres in Australia. And so that's why this is being offered through FPMT Australia, because obviously that tour is not happening. He's over there in WA in lockdown, and we're over here in Queensland in lockdown. I mean, our borders are closed, both of us, for a little while yet. But in any case, wonderful, wonderful teaching. So that's on every Sunday until, I don't know, until he finishes. Could be some time. It's a little text, but boy, it's dense. So there's one that's one of the, I also mentioned it because here we're coming to sort of concise part of the 7-point mind training that relates to here. This one, transforming adversity into the spiritual path. And this 7-point mind training is mostly known through Geshe Chekwa, I mentioned yesterday. But, you can see like in some of the, like Lama teachers, and I know Geshe's gone through this one, do you know that? The Bodhisattva's jewel garland has the sort of, and the root lines of Mahayana mind training have the essence of this, of what Geshe Chakwa, and particularly one of his students, then put that together as a more broader teaching. Like yesterday I mentioned, they called it the leper's Dharma because they made it accessible to everybody, rather than being for those whose minds were ready for it. And then this one, I just wanted to, it's number 13. No, here, this is a different, structure of the collection. That's all right. Still there, 187. So this is precisely this, transforming adversity into a spiritual path. What did I say? 187? 187. Okay. It is said that homage to the precious teachers, always pay homage at the beginning of a text, and then you know, what genre of teachings it fits in. It's said that the instructions for transforming intense mental states such as attachment and aversion into the path on the basis of the two awakening minds so aspiring bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta, how to take afflictions onto the path is presented in tantras. However, it is impossible for the ordinary afflictions themselves to become the path, the ordinary afflictions. As far as taking afflictions onto the path by means of selecting them as your meditation focus and turning away from them is concerned, has been taught repeatedly in the sutras. In other words, we can all do this. So for attachment, which we're talking about this morning, when you observe yourself experiencing attachment to either an internal experience, which means mental, or an specific external object, contemplate the following. This is the affliction of attachment. This is what we were saying, isn't it, this morning? Name it, identify it. If not relinquished, not purified, and not conquered, it will give rise to immeasurable suffering, such as rebirth in lower realms. If transformed and conquered, it can be a condition for full enlightenment. I will therefore conquer it, so it becomes a condition for Buddhahood. Thinking thus, take into your mind your enemy's afflictions of attachment. While meditating on loving kindness, cultivate this towards a larger group. And finally, take on yourself all the attachment along with their propensities existing in all beings. So I think the other translation has it sort of very graphically piling up upon yourself, all beings' desires and attachments and so forth. Becomes so great as to be unfathomable. Imagine all sentient beings become free of attachment and attain Buddhahood. This is the practice of taking afflictions upon yourself on the basis of the conventional awakening mind. Take upon yourself this attachment of yours, the size of Mount Meru, and heap others' attachment upon it as well. Then reflect, attachment is by nature mental. Apart from the mind, there is no attachment, not even one atom's breadth. So that when the mind observes itself, past and future states become no more. The past has ceased to be, while the future is though subject to cessation yet to be, and the present is devoid of any identifiable characteristics such as shape or color. Not existing in any manner, the mind abides like space. So what is called attachment is a mere name with no referent at all. Place your mind in this state. That's the practice of the ultimate awakening mind. Okay. I'm going to read out that other bit later. So what was all that? Okay, so these and the outline, we're on session 4, then these lines here are directly from the 7-point mind training. So this is the third, there's all the preliminaries that come and so forth. And then this is the third point, which is transforming adversity into spiritual part, is the third of the 7 points of the 7-point mind training. When the world is filled with negativity, transform adverse conditions into the path of awakening. Drive all blames into one, be grateful to everyone and everything. Seeing confusion as the 4 enlightened aspects is the unexcelled protection emptiness gives. The best method entails 4 practices: do good, refrain from evil, feed the demons, pray for help. Whatever you meet instantly, join it with meditation practice. Okay. So the ones, so the first few points, no. So we train in 2 ways, through thought and through action. So being grateful, driving all blames onto the one, be grateful to everyone and everything, seeing confusion as the 4 enlightened aspects, unexcelled protection, emptiness gives. This is training in thought. And then the last couple are training in action, okay? So these are different ways that we challenge our habitual ways of seeing, thinking, reacting to problems. However, we're also very good at neutralizing the impact, you would say, of these methods, like incorporating these new ideas into our own habits, like making them fit us and not changing. Compartmentalizing them so they have no impact on how we think or feel. So this is when we take sort of like an intellectual approach to it and you go, oh, that's really good. And it sort of stops there. It doesn't make its way into your body and your mind. Okay. When this happens, the methods have become ineffective and we need to try other ways or find a fresh approach. So this is where, for example, you know, we hear that, excuse me, the teaching many times from different teachers. So we get a different perspective or a different translation, which also means reading different translations of the texts. And for example, next weekend when we do the 8 verses of thought transformation, Lama Zopa Rinpoche is giving us a new rendition. Some few words here and there have changed in the translation into English, but we can look at, there are many, many different translations. And I find this really helps with getting in the richness of ideas and not to dwell on every single word, but that's useful in meditation to dwell on every single word, at least the intent of each verse when we get to that, but all these intents as well. But we have to know what all this means and, you know, finding a different way. So this is the danger that we hear the teaching. Oh yes, the verses, 8 verses of thought transformation. I've heard those teachings many times, or 4 noble truths. I've heard that teaching. And then it's sort of like our mind becomes the upturned pot and nothing more goes in because, oh, I know that teaching. So the mind of pride, we wouldn't call it pride necessarily. We just think we know that one, right? Because I guess particularly in our Western education system, I was going to say, actually, we hear that we get taught something once and then you go and learn the next thing. But I do recall doing that times table over and over and over. Anyone teach in primary school? Anyone teach in primary school? You taught in primary school.
Yeah, but mine we only did the plus ones.
They only did the plus ones. But how many times did you do those?
Till everyone in the class knew.
Till everyone, how long was that? It took a year, every day, right? 1 + 1 is 2.
Well, not all of them, but
Someone got a pen? one of my favorite people, Jean Houston, Venerable Wongbo just reminded me. She's one of the
Mine black.
any color. She was in conversation with the Dalai Lama Renaissance films. They had 40 people at the top of their field. Anyway, she's a great philosopher, thinker, and educator. I don't know if anyone's seen any of her work. So read any of it. I did some whatever workshops with her in the 80s in Chiringong. Yeah, somewhere. Okay, so anyway, she was invited to speak to this women's club. So she went to this, event and spoke. And then she said to the woman who invited her afterwards, why did you actually invite me here? None of these women are interested in what I have to say. And so she said, come home. So she took her home and her son was downstairs in the basement. So come down to the basement. And he'd made all these amazing inventions, all right? Just truly amazing inventions. And he had this capacity. He would, he'd be able to be in this room and tell you all the exact dimensions of the room. Kinesthetically, he could sense these things. And so he knew the exact dimension, but he was failing his maths exams because he couldn't do it in a linear way. He did it we would say in an intuitive way. So he was brilliant and we did all these inventions, but he was failing. And then there were others, like this one boy in the class, little boy in a little class, I guess. And the teacher said to him, what is 3 times 2? And he said 2 times 3. And the teacher said, prove it. So he did. Can you see? I don't know if you can see it. It's not dark enough. I need a bigger pen. I need a fatter pen.
Oh,
There's fat pens there. They're out there.
Oh, out on that table, there's some whiteboard markers.
Yeah, there's plenty of markers. Anyway, there was also another girl, and she was failing history because she was, oh gosh, I'm not good on American history. That river, Potomac? No, the Potomac? Potomac? Who was it who did or didn't cross it? Anyway, she would just present all these hypotheticals. What if he didn't do that? And what if they didn't do that? So she was a great thinker. She was failing history. Anyway, this boy, teacher said, prove that 2 times 3 is 3 times 2. So he said, okay, I will.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. See? 3 times 2, 2 times 3, however you want to read it. He was failing as well. Anyway, so she went and talked to the principal, who was in their last year of being a principal, was about to retire, and said, okay, we're going to change our education here. These kids are brilliant. We're not accommodating them in their brilliance. We're failing them because they're brilliant, more brilliant than the teacher, because they just had different ways of seeing and different perspectives. And this kid was inventing things because he was different. So amazing. But we like to put difference down, don't we? Okay. That was a slight diversion. I didn't know what was going to happen. Okay, so 7-point mind training. It's about changing perspective. So there's a sort of link. Got to look at different methods. So His Holiness said, get the teachings with different teachers. Hear different perspective. The teachings are the same. It's not like that one's telling the wrong thing and that one's telling the right thing. Well, if they are, you can debate it if you know the authentic lineage, of course. But it wasn't that point. It was the point we hear different nuances. Even different times we hear the same teaching over and over again. What do we say? The penny drops, It's sort of like, I've heard that I don't know how many times, and suddenly, or maybe not suddenly because I've been meditating on it, but finally something sinks in. So it's like that. That's why we need it many, many times. And different teachers and different fellow students, because we help each other. We discuss it, like we have the basic program here. We're resuming. Venerable Wongmo's doing, Graham's doing, anyone else doing, some of you online are doing. Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And we have meditation, you know, contemplate the points of what the teaching is about. And you have discussion. So these three wisdoms, you know, listening to the teachings, the wisdom of listening, which includes all your, you know, listening to the teachings. I mean, listening to the teachings online, watching all these wonderful teachings online, reading and so forth and so forth. But then contemplating, discussing, analysing, thinking about it, and tutorials. Yeah, which is contemplation, discussing, going over, reviewing. We use all these terms, same thing. This is the wisdom of contemplation. So it has, you know, it sticks more. And then meditate on it. In other words, make it merge with your DNA. Well, not your DNA, your mind, because the DNA you're going to leave behind too. So no point having it in your DNA. But, you know, we say that, don't we? It becomes integral to you. So you integrate it. So we do all of this, you know. So we do this many, 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 many times. So, and that way it enriches us, enriches our approach. So it's one way. So here we have finding a fresh approach. When the world is filled with negativity, transform the adverse conditions into the path of awakening, the path of enlightenment, the path of being awake, seeing things as they are. You know, the Buddha, when he sat under the Bodhi tree and attained the state of enlightenment, not just, I mean, it said, you know, in the duration of the night, but I mean, way to go. He'd been practicing countless eons. If you read the backstories of the Buddha, we've got a few of them. You know, it just tells you the way that he transformed his mind and so forth. So we have like the prayers we do here in the morning. If we're thinking about this as these adverse conditions or opportunities to, as it says, transform it, bring it into my spiritual practice, which is what it means by bringing the adversity onto the path. When you probably know this story, when he was King Great Courage, he fed the tigress with his own flesh. So this story, you know, is celebrated at the place Nama Buddha in Nepal. Did you go? Did you go to Nama Buddha?
No.
You would have known there were a lot of steps. A lot of steps. Many, many steps. Anyway, so there he was a prince and in a previous life, and he was out with his brother, and they came across this tigress, all skinny, and her bubs, baby tiger cubs, 5 of them, and they were all skinny too. So she was starving, they were starving, she couldn't feed them, and she was contemplating eating them. That's how far gone she was. I mean, what mother contemplates eating her children? Really, you've got to be desperate, right? So out of his clairvoyance, seeing her mind, he says, okay, well, I'll save her from that. Great Bodhisattva, save her from that karma, save them from that karma. Thank you very much. So he offers his own body. So first of all, he lies down. The tigress doesn't attack him. So he thinks, oh, well, I better slit my throat. He's a Buddha. This is not something to practice at home. They say that, you know, once you're Arya Bodhisattva, you can, you know, it's inconsequential to give away your body. Meantime, we're very attached to our body. Please don't be giving it away. I mean, it's even hard to give blood, as I discovered. There's so many restrictions on that. You can poison when you want to help, you know. Really. So, anyway, the Buddha, so we say then the Buddha's body was an emanation. So for our benefit, you know, to get these teachings. In this case, you could say for the tiger's benefit and all the bubbies as well. So slit his throat. So blood came So then she ate, and then they ate, and they survived. And they became, in that life as Shakyamuni Buddha, the 5 close disciples of the Buddha. Okay. So, okay, you might say, I don't think I'm there yet. When he was Prince Great Meaningful Virtue, he was able to bear ingratitude with compassion. In the same way, may I cherish with great compassion those around me who disturb me with their ungratefulness and bad dispositions. So it's a training. It's a training, slowly, slowly. Yes. As great being, you transformed yourself into the chief of turtles and saved the merchants from the ocean. So they were in the ship, they were going to drown. I think they were in the water. I think something happened to the ship. The ship went down, the ship was wrecked. Anyway, they were in the water. So the turtle, one by one, takes the whole crew to shore. And they collapse on the shore. And the turtle's exhausted and collapses on the shore. And then all these flies come, and so then he gave his own body to all the flies that were attacking the turtle. Okay, maybe not there yet either. I mean, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you hear so many stories that, you know, one time when they gave him a mosquito net, and then the story is, so he had a mosquito net to cover him while he was sleeping, but of course, you know, his attendant comes into the room and he's got this mosquito net up, inviting all the mosquitoes, so his back's covered in mosquitoes. This is a holy body, right? A holy body can do that. If you think Ross River fever, don't think I'm going to do that. You know, use your wisdom, okay? Use your wisdom. We do what we can. Yes, we have to have compassion, but we do have to have wisdom as well. The two wings of the bird, use both together. Anyway, we can be inspired by those stories and other great beings. Like yesterday, we were talking about Vajrasattva. So training on the path, and we're in good company, because if you go back far enough, even, you know, at one point, the Buddha was an ordinary being like the rest of us, making all the ordinary mistakes we all make. But just, you know, 3 countless great eons later of training in the path. So don't expect yourself to have all these qualities, you know, in a weekend.
Oh no, we've got till the end of the year.
We've got till the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, you've got till the end of the year. Yeah, what's your problem? Okay. So when we talk about the world filled with negativity, what we think, because we've been looking so long at the objective world out there as being the problem, but what we do is we look at internally, our subjective experiences. So when appearances in our inner world become very negative, become heavy, our mind becomes heavy, right? Contracted, we were talking about before, it becomes very dark, we get depressed. We have to take each one of those adverse situations and transform it. Oh, this is the fuel. This is the opportunity to progress me on the spiritual path. This does take training, because it's not our normal way of thinking by any means. You know, how we can ask ourselves, how can I use this situation? Have I gone offline? Or something else just popped up? Something else just popped up. I'm scared to turn it off, because yesterday I turned off Geshe Zopa, didn't I, for a moment? It's like we're sitting here watching. It's, oh, sorry, Geshe. Well, you know, we got back online. Okay. Okay. So this thing of making the mind spacious, making the mind, seeing it as an opportunity to transform, to propel ourselves along the path to enlightenment, just like us here, as I was saying. Here we were chatting about, oh, we should really use a camera and put, you know, go on YouTube and do it. We've been talking like this for years. Suddenly you're in the situation you have to do it. So like that, I better just do it. I better just do it. So softening the mind, you know, be spacious, be relaxed, do this. And like, you know, our dear friend in prison who was sitting there in isolation. I mean, he could have sat there very bitter and twisted for 21 days and died a very unhappy death, but he died a very happy death. We had a couple of guys like that. Like he died 2 hours before he died because, you know, these 21 days, he had intense practice. He was doing intense practice, but also because so many people ringing in and doing practice with him. Oh no, he was ringing out. You can't ring in. He was ringing out. And this nun who was in the same, Venerable Amy, we saw her on the, a little bit older. We saw her on the video yesterday. So Venerable Amy Miller. So she was in the same time zone. How wonderful. And so she would be, so he rang her, he said, oh, you know, I've got 2 hours left in this life. So they did practice together.
Was he on death row?
Yes, he was not only on death row, he was meeting his execution date. I mean, when he went in there for those 21 days, which was the final, he knew that, you know, all appeals were over. You know, they always have these appeals, and he knew it was the end of the story. And he knew he was guilty. So he knew he was guilty.
Oh, he knew he was guilty. Yeah, he'd done the deed.
He'd done the deed. And I mean, of course, they try to, you know, they don't bring up any change that you've made in the meantime. So he was 19, as he said, I was 19. So I was young. I was drunk or on drugs. I was angry and I had a gun. That was a bad set of conditions coming together. So he immediately, he was in prison, engaged with the Dharma. Amazing, isn't it? He didn't ever before. You know, out of adverse situations. You want an adverse situation? That's pretty adverse. And the next, he died when he was 37. And so he really, really practiced. He really, really practiced. And right up to the very end, he had all those conditions. And then, as I say, if you take your death into the path, hey, watch this space next time. Because he had compassion in his heart, like another guy who also was executed. I mean, fortunately, there are more and more of the American states who are getting rid of the death penalty. But this other one who died in 2010, this one was a few years later, the other one who died in 2010, one of our students, talk about all the conditions ripening for his execution. It was quite amazing. You know, he was in a state where, I think it was Oklahoma. I don't know if they've still got the death penalty there, but it was Oklahoma, I'm pretty sure. And you've got to have these 3 drugs for the execution, you know, one of which is a sedative. And the state there has to be at least 2 sets available in case they need something stuffs up. You've got to have a backup one. They only had one in the state of the sedative because the company that developed it had developed to help women in childbirth. They never dreamed it was going to be used for execution, so they withdrew it. A European company, they withdrew supply. So there was short supply everywhere. So that was one condition. There was another guy who was supposed to be executed before him, but he got a stay of execution. So this one zipped up. He didn't get a stay of execution. He claimed his innocence right till the end. The only way the police had a lead, as I say, to him was his wife, who was, once she was estranged from him, dobbed him in. But he always claimed it was his wife. He was not, shall we say, mentally
Stable?
He was stable, but he just wasn't very bright.
Not high mental acuity.
Not high mental acuity, thank you. He was not high mental acuity. And so he always claimed it was his wife and her brother, but they couldn't get any evidence. So anyway, they couldn't change any evidence. He had a Buddhist lawyer that she believed in. He had reconciled with his family. All the people in prison thought he had totally transformed, and because he said, I just want to be alive to teach Dharma. That's it. He'd been there, whatever it was, 10 years or so, engaging in Dharma and so forth. And so then the last week of his life, because he'd had this monk visiting from Shravasti Abbey, and then he had also a Geshe come. And so in the last week, so he had these mentors guiding him and so forth. And right at the very end, he was in the execution room. They don't let anybody in. They wouldn't even let his mentor in or the geshe in. They were allowed to come in straight away afterwards, and do practice. But somehow the door had been left open. So they were yelling prayers and practices and mantras to him. And he'd already planned what he was going to do in that time. So they give you this time, anything that you want to say, actually before when the media interviewed him before his execution, they didn't know what to make of him, because he's like, I will die for the benefit of all beings. I, take on their suffering. And they're like, that's not what we expected to hear. But it was in the paper. And so as he was going out, as I say, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, till his breath stopped. Amazing. And the Geshe said, none of us will ever be as prepared for death as he was. Because like the other guy said, I could have died before my death date. They had a date. I could die before that. So amazing. So that's taking adverse conditions into the path, okay? So it can inspire us, not just the Buddha's stories, but these amazing stories can inspire us as well, that it is possible, even from such adverse conditions. Yes, great.
On that thing, did you see the movie?
Just Mercy.
Yeah, I've got the book. I won the book. I went to the first screening.
Actually.
And there was a book under my seat. So I got a free book as well.
Well,
that was an amazing
movie. The book I got many, many years ago, Venerable Tenzin Chokyi gave me many, many years ago when she was in Australia. She used to be spending 6 months between New Zealand and Australia. She's American. She's in America. And she does a lot of prison work and so forth. She was on the board of our project back then. And anyway, so she met that guy and they did something at Vajrapani together. I was looking for it the other day. Yeah. Because when she gave it to me, she said, you must read this. So when it came out as a movie, it's my first time in Queensland. No, it's not. It's the second time going to see a movie. We went to see the Tibetan one, barley fields on the other side of the mountain with Geshe Sultram. We saw that a few years ago. Anyway, so I saw Just Mercy just before lockdown.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah, taking very adverse conditions. It's like the Black Lives Movement now. It's precisely that sort of a message, actually.
That guy was innocent.
He was innocent, But what I liked in that, Graham, of many things I liked, but what I liked in particular was he taught his mates to meditate. And the meditation wasn't, religious or within any, Buddhist context, anything else. It was simply because of that image he had of the trees and the light and so forth, and go towards nature, go towards the trees. And it pacified their minds. I said, on you, good on you. Fantastic. Very powerful practice. Okay. Then it says, drive all the blame onto one, which is the ego. So smashing this self-cherishing thought. So this is what we need to do. So those of you who saw last time when we were looking at the faults of self-cherishing, the shortcomings, that the faults of cherish keep me in the prison, indeed, of samsara, of life after lifetime of suffering and taking a body that's so fragile. I mean, human body, but it's still fragile. The skin, I can cut it with a piece of paper. How fragile is that? It never seems to work when you try to. Only when you're not trying. So many diseases, so many things that are medicines meant to heal the body that in fact can be poison, or foods that are meant to nourish, or housing that's meant to be protective and so forth, and that it can fall apart, or earthquake, or you die in a bushfire. You think you're protected. So all these things. But by this self-cherishing mind has kept me in this ignorance and overcome by countless problems because of my attachment and aversion, all the other afflictions that arise because I got it all wrong in the first place, because I've been holding on to this I that doesn't exist anywhere, grasping at this, such that I don't even enjoy temporal happiness. It can be a bright sunny day and I'm like, what a terrible day. Or it can be opposite. I remember when I first met Venerable Renee, when he ordained, Lama Zopa Rinpoche sent him straight to retreat, I believe. I was just like, Rinpoche, I'll take that option. Clearly, he could see that my mind wasn't ready to be quiet anytime soon. But Venerable Renee is amazing. His meditations on emptiness are beyond amazing. He wrote about it in Mandala magazine one time, meditating on emptiness. And he said, whenever the thought of I arose, I stood up. I went straight to Geshe Santen and I said, Geshe-la, I'd never be sitting down. So I had a wonderful teaching from him on different levels of emptiness. So that was useful. I thought, oh, maybe I should go to him with more of my problems. Anyway, amazing. So when I first met him, it was Christmas Eve, the Vajrapani Institute, and he was up in what was called the very secret hut. Don't know if I meant to keep that a secret. Anyway, it's the one that's highest up. And he had finished a retreat, or whatever. I can't remember if he was still doing a retreat or finished a retreat. Anyway, it'd been organised that I could see him. And went along with another friend we were at Lama Zopa's house in Aptos. And I went up and he said, oh, it's a terrible day now, isn't it? Because it was pouring with rain and going up those, well, they're not paths, trails. It's sludgy and blah, blah, blah. And you get up there and you're all a bit muddy and it was raining. And he says, oh, it's a terrible day, isn't it? And I went, oh, no, it's a fantastic day because I got to meet him. As far as I was concerned, this was the best day at that time, right? So, he seemed to be happy that I said that. I didn't say because I got to meet you. I didn't, but I just said, no, it's a fantastic day. So it can be a terrible day or a fantastic day, even it's sludgy and raining and you've got to trudge up a mountain.
I can't even remember what the weather was like the day we were done.
No, I remember.
Relevant.
The weather when they ordained, they're having a conversation how the weather was when they ordained was lovely weather, because I remember the next week was when we had those lightning crushing and at the time that you ordained a week earlier. And I thought, I'm so glad it didn't happen then. But I don't know, maybe that would have been auspicious, We had a teaching here with Geshe-la where the Lam Rim retreat, thunder, lightning, the lights go out, Geshe-la keeps teaching, Venerable Kartsen keeps translating in the dark. He was doing an oral transmission. It was like the elements were intervening. This is the protection. This is why we do all these practices, to pacify all those elements. Okay, all right. So it doesn't even let me enjoy, temporal happiness, ordinary everyday happiness. And it will continue to destroy me lifetime after lifetime, the self-cherishing thought. Whereas, so as it says, however much suffering, however much fear, this is Shanti Deva, however many harmful things are in existence arise from clinging at this eye. So he says, what should I do with this great demon? So if we've got time, we'll get on to the demons. The demons are coming. The demons are coming. Okay. The demon is the self-cherishing. Until we've recognized oneself as one's own enemy, we do say it, don't we? You're your worst enemy, I'm my worst enemy. We say those words. It's true, right? This self-cherishing mind is. There'll be no peace between beings. No gurus can help us. But when we see that, everything becomes possible. The guru can be helpful. And then, of course, the benefits beyond of cherishing others, because on the basis of others. So as it said, if we when we do the four opponent powers, the power of reliance, we take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So the reliance on the three rare sublime ones, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, our teachers and teachings, and the Arya beings, the great holy realized beings who, bring these teachings to us. So, you know, and then if we rely on them equally, in equal part, we rely on others. So we rely on them for protection to guide us, but then it's in relation to others that we're going to progress, other sentient beings, other ordinary beings such as ourselves, that we're going to progress on the path of enlightenment, because they're the ones who really get us to the point where I've got to change this way of thinking. I've got to change the way of relating to these people or events or so forth. I've got to do something different. So they're the ones who propel us on the path to enlightenment, drive the brain onto the one, you know. And we do that, as we were looking at very briefly yesterday, in the four immeasurable thoughts, four immeasurable minds, where we're practicing Tonglen, of taking on the suffering of others to smash the hard rock of self-cherishing, soften our heart, opening out to others, and to give others all our happiness, all our health, all our virtues, you know, all the kindness, all the love that just sort of ooze out like nectar to soothe their minds. So to smash this. So what happens when we blame someone or something for our problems? Does blaming help with the problem? Does it get rid of the problem? Nope. If the one in the verse does not refer to the self or others, animate, inanimate, so animate as in other beings, or inanimate objects, because we also blame objects. You know, I tripped over the cord, it's the cord's fault.
My car had an accident last year.
Venerable Yangshin's car had an accident. The driver had nothing to do with it. The driver, the car, I mean, maybe when you've got a driverless car, you might be able to say it was the car's fault, but until then, they're having a few problems with that. Do you know they have to even program in human reaction time, because what happens at a stoplight, the driverless cars, immediately the stoplight changes to go, is going, but the human's still adjusting to the fact that the light has changed. So they have to factor that in, human reaction time. Otherwise there's going to be smashes. They haven't quite got there yet. Okay. So, as it says, what would happen if I just stopped blaming? Just stop the blame game. Simple. So we have this, you know, as I said earlier, what mind labels it as a problem. You know, there used to be, I don't know, was it an 80s thing, the training? It's like, the problem is there. We have a problem. I'm not the problem. You're not the problem. We have a problem. So let's look at the problem. Let's see how we can resolve the problem from different perspectives. Let's see what Lama Zopa's got to say. As long as you recognize everything as a problem, even being given food that is a little cold causes great discomfort in your mind. Something a little wrong with the way someone dresses or looks, something not quite according to your own idea, becomes a cause of great pain. If some person or animal makes a noise during the night and wakes you up, oh yes, we know that one. The whole of the next day you complain about, I didn't get any sleep last night, you know, there was a... Yeah, they were snoring. You know, I tried to overcome snoring when I was doing that workshop with Jean Houston, I mentioned actually, and we're in these bunks, you know, these women in these bunk beds in the accommodation where we were staying, and everyone else, I think there were 5 of us in there, everyone else except for me snored.
You just can't hear yourself snore.
No, it was true.
That was about crying.
It was true. Anyway, so I thought, that's okay. I'll resolve this. I'll go to bed before them and then I'll be asleep and they can snore and it won't bother me. Well, they came in, chat, 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 chat. And so one would go to sleep and start snoring and then they'd stop snoring and the other one would start. If I just turned it into a symphony, I might have got some sleep, but you know, my poor old mind stayed away that night. Oh, well. Okay. Give up the blame game. Work on a different strategy. Be grateful to everyone and everything. So this is part of the benefits of cherishing others. This taps into when we're looking at the 7-point cause and effect, different 7-point cause and effect, of reflecting on the fact that we've all had past lives. In each of those lives, just like this life, I've had a mother. Reflect on the kindness of the mother of this life, all the multiple things a mother, a father, guardian, etc., does to protect us, to nurture. I mean, we come out of the womb. I mean, not the womb, out of the, it is out of the womb, isn't it? Come out, we get born. I have not had children, can you tell? You get born. You can't fend for yourself. You can't do a thing for yourself. So just that initial stage, let alone, if you reflect on this over and over again, everything, the mother of this life or the father or the guardian or this or that person who cared for you, brought you up and so forth, probably even the extended family who do that, you know, the aunties, the uncles, everybody. And then think, well, in all my past lives, I've had a mother, human mothers, animal mothers, who've all done the same thing, countless. I mean, you can never get to the bottom of it. So be grateful. So then what are we talking about gratitude? Well, I looked up the definition in the 16 guidelines for life. So this is a wonderful training. Lama Yeshe had the vision, take away the R word, religion, because, you know, that could be a barrier to being able to connect with everybody. No surprise that Osal, his reincarnation, is not living in the monastery because he's figured film's the way to go, connect with everybody. And now he's out and about in the world. Now he's even been a dad. He's even been split up from 2 partners now. I think he's now without a partner. And now he's the director of...
Yeah, so good.
Is it at Osal? That would be fun.
Yeah.
It's a centre in Spain. Maybe it's not that one, but Osaling was where his parents, where he was conceived. Okay. Spanish. Okay. So you can see that to connect with beings, what's most benefit in this world right now? So Lama Yeshe, those who saw the video here yesterday, I discovered that we didn't have number 11 on our machine down there. So next time, sorry, we watched number 9 instead, all about karma. But there was Venerable Connie Miller. And so it was like she got the transmission of the universal education back in the early 80s from the vision for universal education from Lama Yeshe. And yeah, so this one, these 16 guidelines, I can't give the whole history, but full focus on, they're about values. If we want to talk about values-based education, it's all here with not a particular religious focus, right? It's about ethics, how we think, humility, patience, contentment, delight, how we act, kindness, honesty, generosity, right speech, how we relate to others, respect, forgiveness, gratitude, loyalty, how we find meaning in the world, you know, aspiration, principles, service, courage, which is the whole path of the bodhisattva. But going back to gratitude, so what it says here, I really like what it says here. Gratitude celebrates our connections with other beings and our capacity to offer mutual support. May not be the way we normally think of gratitude. It is a form of openness and generosity that strengthens relationships, heals tensions, resentment, and anger. It calls us to strip away unnecessary complexities and to be simple and natural with each other. It brings peace and harmony. To receive gratitude from others is to strengthen our confidence that we have a positive role to play in the world. It makes us feel recognized, encouraged, and inspired. When we are able to offer gratitude sincerely to someone else, notice how it brings a pleasant taste in the mouth, a warm feeling in the heart, and a surge of energy it feels good. That's a good enough selling point for me. Gratitude, attitude of gratitude. It's quite useful at the end of each day to think, what are the things I'm grateful for? They don't have to be huge. I'm still alive. I'm breathing. Right now, I don't have COVID. Or if I do, I don't know I've got COVID. I'm not sure if I'm grateful for that because you get so scared. What if I've got it? You know, we were talking a couple of months ago, but what if I've got it and I go out there and I give it to someone else? Of course, you don't want that. Anyway, be grateful for what we do have. And that's all dependent on others, you know, especially in relation to a difficult person. That's when we have to up the ante. You know, we think about the good qualities. We think about the qualities of cherishing these others, but we also turn our mind to, as we said yesterday, rather than focusing on the faults, focusing on the good qualities, and at least on the benefits of cherishing these others, because that's how I become a Buddha. You know, in relation to our friends and family, we're saying yesterday, you know, that maybe it's even our friends and family who are the ones who more rub us up the wrong way because they really know how to press our buttons, as we say. So I always say, you know, to myself, I always say, and sometimes I say it loud, like now, if I can't get on with my fellow Dharma sisters, brothers, how can I help other beings in the world who don't have a shared goal? You know, we have a shared goal. If I, you know, so this is my, as Lama Yeshe said, this is our training ground. We are each other's training ground. In other words, we're going to rub each other up the wrong way. We're going to, you know, it's not, but we use that to help us to train, to develop our capacity, to build more and more our ability to do it, okay? Then, seeing confusion as the four enlightened aspects in the unexcelled protection emptiness gives. And you go, what? So regardless of all, so regarding, another translation of this, regarding all deceptive appearances, in other words, everything appears to be independent out there of its own side, so it's all deceptive, as being the four kayas, refers to the four bodies of the Buddha, the four enlightened aspects. This is the unexcelled safekeeping of emptiness. This is where I go back to the mind training book. So the four enlightened aspects. So usually we refer to these four Buddha bodies. So by the cultivation of the mind of wisdom, we develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, in other words, recognizing things as they are, reality, truth. So that becomes the truth body, or Dhammakaya, we say, the wisdom body. So it's like, it's not a body, it's not a physical body, it's a mind. And then from our compassion, from the body's sattva deeds and practices and accumulation of merit from that, becomes the basis of a form body of a Buddha. In other words, if a Buddha is going to benefit others, they need to connect with them. So they need to have a body, right? So we have different form bodies for different levels of realized beings. So that's how it's normally presented, like that. And here it says, you know, practicing this mind of bodhicitta, this mind of taking adversity in the path, the form body arises. Mere hearing of the name, the form body, Rupakaya. So we have two, Sambhogakaya, which is like when we see the aspect, like Chenrezig, Thousand-Armed Chenrezig, Kandrila, when she saw His Holiness the Dalai Lama for the first time, this is what she saw. Right. Now, as much as I want to see that, I see an 85-year-old monk, which is the form that my karma can connect with. I happen to believe that the Dalai Lama is this. Can I prove it? No, I'm doing that on a mind of conviction, of faith. I can see, well, actually, His Holiness said, I'm an emissary. He said that 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? I'm an emissary of Chenrezig. I'm not Chenrezig, I'm an emissary of Chenrezig. Good enough. To me, that means you're Chenrezig. Thanks. Okay, we can debate that. We don't need to debate that. So we do that with the mind of faith because for us to get the maximum benefit, we see all our gurus, all our teachers as Buddha. Unless we're a Buddha, we don't know who's a Buddha, really. So it could be the bush turkey. Okay, so normally we talk about these bodies and they take an aspect that benefits us. It can be a bridge, it can be a Dalai Lama, it can be a Lama Zopa, it can be whatever we need. So that's how it's usually. So this idea of space or emptiness is the Dharmakaya mind. And Sambhogakaya, no, essence. We talk about this anyway, don't worry. We don't need to go into all the details of all those, I don't think. But how it's useful to think of this is that this ordinary body of ours is a result of our karma. To become a Buddha, we transform by the grist for the mill, taking this into the path, transforming. So the word in Tibetan, Sangye, or in Sanskrit, Bodhi, Buddha. So the first syllable, Sang, is purifying all the negative states of mind, eliminating all the negative states of mind, which is like the internal cleansing of the mind, getting rid of all the obscurations, afflictive obscurations, knowledge obscurations, everything. And then Ge is arising, developing all the positive qualities, which we do in relation to cultivating the positive states of mind, but principally it's in relation to the bodhisattva deeds and practicing the six perfections in relation to others, right? So this is what we do. So, for example, in the case of a difficult person, there's an obvious appearance of the person, how they speak, behave, the underlying emotion, belief, the fundamental fact the person is never fixed and unchanging, always subject to influence by changing conditions, old and new, outer, inner space. So, of course, we can look at the whole teachings on friend, enemy, stranger, and the fact that that person I label as my enemy or as my sandpaper or whatever I want to call them is not always in that category. But also, they have Buddha nature just like me. They have the capacity to develop the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya just like me. And if they're a fellow Dharma practitioner, they've also got that motivation to do that. So the form body, Rupakaya, the mere, okay, gives rise to, so the form body gives rise to enlightened activities, and that's a whole other course about the enlightened activities of a Buddha that help pacify afflictions. And the Dharmakaya, the wisdom mind, eliminates all the afflictions and their propensities or any imprints of that on our mind, any tendency towards, so completely eliminated from the root, right? So in other words, transform all the afflictions into purifying them and applying their antidotes. Okay, we've got time. We've run out of time. I didn't get onto the demons. That's a whole other course too. Feeding the demons, befriending our negative states of mind, making offerings to those that disturb us. That comes down there. Okay. We'll have to leave it there because I did want to mention some of you are interested in doing the assessments. So those doing the course as a, doing assessments, there's some questions which I sent out on the email. And if you want to address those questions, I think the second one's about the 8 verses. So that comes after next weekend. You can do the first one, you can do the last one. And then after next week. Anyway, you can review the questions. If you are wanting to, it says in the thing that you got, I think, no more than 1 page in response to each one. I want no more than 1 page in response. No, just, get your mind, you know, because of course look, there can be whole books about it and it doesn't even cover it, but then you've got to have the commentary to that. But, you know, let's just see. We don't need a whole essay. So those who are interested in doing the whole completion thing, you know, it's doing the course, the teachings, doing the readings, doing the assessment, doing the meditations, which we'll be doing in July. And that's it, right? Yeah. Okay. So those that wish to, let me know. And I think, yeah, we had, and anybody who did the bodhicitta module who also, I haven't put a closing date to anything for when you send in any responses. So if you're still thinking about that, it's not like time's up, you know. But time is up. So thank you very much. We can dedicate, actually, I picked up down the back here, Venerable Tubten, some of you know, makes these lovely little scrolls, which I've just unscrolled. And I've picked one up because it was 10 colours. But it can be our dedication, because I think most people know this one. It's from the Bodhisattva's way of life. For as long as space remains and for as long as living beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the misery of the world. So thank you very much. That's your homework. Okay, so I hope to see folks next week. And please, if you're thinking of coming up and staying overnight, we do have accommodation. Everything's by donation at the moment. So just get in touch if you want to do that, because we need to know how many cabins to get ready. And otherwise, it's been wonderful having people physically here. Apart from you, a few more people joining us here. Joining us here in the Gompa. No, Venerable Yangshan's been here solidly, but yeah, more people, and I think we can go off and have lunch. Yeah, so come, you know, we're open now. You can come when you like. Graham came up yesterday to show someone around who was only here yesterday, and so now Graham was able to join us today, so cool. Thank you. And they had coffee and cake. Okay. See you next time.
See you. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Chalky.
Thank you.
Chalky, just a question for next weekend. You say you've got 2 more teachings and then meditations in July, or is there meditations during next weekend?
If you want to unmute yourself and just say hello, goodbye. Hi, Virginia. Hi, come and say, come, say hello. Hi, Tim. Hi, Graham.
I had a question for you.
Hey, Virginia.
I'll try and get it. Hi, Sarah.
Sarah.
Try and get up the, see, I put in a plug for the 16 guidelines, Sarah. Way to go. Hey, Rachel. Sally. How are you doing, Sally?
Oh, Sally!
Oh, Sally.
You have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes,
There she is.
much better, thank you.
I can't hear you. I still can't hear you.
Hold on, we're just
On the mend.
No, she's got her mic on. We are not hearing her.
Yeah, never mind.
No problem.
All good.
We can't hear you, Sally. Sorry.
Sorry.
Can you hear us?
We'll just have to
Yes.
wait.
I
Hi,
can hear
Eva.
you.
Thank you for yesterday so much.
Thank you, Virginia.
Yeah. No, our sound is, I don't know. We've had this problem before. It's too hard for me. I'm technologically challenged. No, I'm definitely not a techno wizard. I worry about that because it is the way of the future. How am I going to cope in future lives? How am I coping this life?
I think Tim has a question for you,
Okay,
Chelsea.
ciao.
She
See
can't hear us.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh,
Bye.
Graham's
Bye,
got,
Sally.
Graham's got Geshe-la up there.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Bye-bye.
Tim had a question. What was your question, Tim? Because I can't hear a thing.
Can you hear me yet?
Tim, you'll have to email. your question.
Oh, you can't hit. Okay.
Yeah, let's just go off.
There we go.
No, but it does not making a difference.
Can you hear me yet?
Our sound isn't working, Tim, so
Okay. Oh, it's all right. I'll email.